Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels. My guest tonight is Tess Langston, whose Kickstarter, Growing Up on the Spectrum, caught my attention immediately, has been talked about on the weekly episode a couple of times now. I got to read it today. I loved it, and I want you to pitch it to us because um, I don't want to make too many assumptions about what you wrote it for, even though I definitely have my view of what I think where I think it hits. But Tess, tell us about the project. Uh, tell us about yourself. I should have said hi. Remember, autistic. I don't always even on my own podcast. I'm not always good at the basics. Hi, Tess.
You're doing great, Ted.
Small talk is hard.
I hate small talk.
How's the weather today? Clouds. Hey
So,
everyone, I'm Tess. I'm the creator of Growing Up on the Spectrum, producing Shadowcast Studio. And the project is basically a middle school and up resource that is a 101 book on autism for anyone on and off the spectrum who's curious, for educators, students, guardians, and doctors. And it's just a good in between resource between children's books and giant adult medical books. And it's a part memoir, part 101 guide on the spectrum, starting from my point of view and branching off into a little more research. But overall, this is a gateway to ask more questions and at least lay down the basic foundation of what autism is.
okay, I nailed it. Isn't that what I texted you, Brit?
Spot on.
Just always worried, particularly with a personal work, that like I'll describe it one way and just discover that the other person meant it some other way. So I wanted to hear you say that first. Yes, I think it's brilliant it being that book for either young people who are either recently diagnosed or just starting to understand what their diagnosis means, and especially for their friends, their parents, their teachers, as a easy to digest reframing tool to look at the autism spectrum as a condition and not automatically even a negative one, not a disease to be cured.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and even with some of the YouTube promotional stuff that I've done, little shorts and everything, or um, that I've put up on social media, people genuinely ask, "Hey, what's the difference between a disease and a disability?" And calmly, I've had to explain, well, a disability is a different way of functioning versus a disease, which is a debilitation of functioning or it's taking away function. Like, for example, a blind person has a disability, they still function in the world and they just can't see. Whereas someone with, like, for cancer, for example, that is a debilitating condition where, if not treated properly, it leads to death. Where a disability, the only difference is in the success is accommodations.
Right. A kind of accommodations, adaptations, modifications. Can you tell I work in special ed?
Yes. Much needed, much needed.
Um, Yeah, so I mean, I loved it. I laughed. I wound up showing stuff to my wife. Um, because I mean, you do it. How to put it? My wife hasn't been diagnosed, but is probably at the very least somewhere on the neurodivergent. She might be more ADHD than autistic, and the line blurs more and more all the time. But we laugh because we have like almost opposite traits, and the page that I actually pulled out to show her was when you were talking about the different thinking styles
Oh, yeah.
and and like I definitely think verbally, I literally cannot form a picture in my head. It does not happen. Whereas my wife very much thinks visually. She only sees actually she'll tell the way she describes it is swirls of colors that sometimes become pictures.
Wow.
But when it got to the pattern part, we actually decided that we split that in half because she's very spatial. She's an artist and art teacher, very, very spatial. And I'm not so good at that, except like cardinal directions. I always know which way north is. Like, but that's because I know my maps really well because I'm really ridiculously good at like pattern recognition and like the math music. Like you talked about, you can sing when you listen to it. I can read the notes, but can't always like effectively make music. But like if I read the notes, I can hear what it's supposed to sound like in my head without.
Like that's a talent. I think that's a talent all on its
It
own. Like, oh
is.
my God, you could read the dots?
Right, right. The dots make sense to me. And I love listening to music. Recreating music has always been, but like the only language other than English that I'm good at is math. All other languages, they're too different. Math is like a completely separate language. It's tied into English and is a bridge to other languages, which is why I'm pretty certain that if I ever learned another language, it would be through math.
Computer science is technically another language. A few of my friends who
Mhm.
went to computer science got filled their requirement for language with binary and computer code.
Oh, that's good to know. Because well, while I've never gotten hardcore into it, it's not because I don't have aptitude. Putting this at the back of my head. Somebody else asked a question. Otherwise, Tess and I are just gonna autistic geek out for the whole night.
Info dump at each
And while
other.
that would make an awesome podcast, we did invite other people for a reason.
Can I jump in right quick? And bear with me. I'm sick as heck, so I apologize. And
Oh.
Chad knows my style, and I'm
Yeah,
quite.
the bug has been going around and somehow missed Lee.
Oh my
I'm
God,
starting
yeah,
to hate Lee because he's
yeah.
been
I'm
around both of
very
us
much right now.
in the
I'm
last
just
week,
here.
and somehow he's not sick at all.
Yeah, I feel like that. So bear with me as I chug along. So first off, Tess, I enjoyed the read. I perused the book quickly, and I did support the Kickstarter. I think I was one of the ones that emailed and said I was a retailer, and I don't know if Tad mentioned it. So I am a doctor.
Yes.
So I have a
He,
different perspective.
I mentioned offhandedly, he's the one that diagnosed me.
So
And he did it initially just at C2E2.
I have some perspectives on it, but as a doctor, but also as a comic shop owner, I did buy the retailer package, and I had a special one made. So thank you. I don't know if it was you that approved it, but I requested a special retailer package, which you guys helped facilitate for me. So I will be selling the book at the shop. I think you
Which he
worded.
apparently even did before I texted him, which made me really, really happy when I learned it.
Oh yeah, I had already done it. Yeah, and then you
Because
told me.
I texted him, I thought like within hours of the campaign starting. So somehow he heard about it even before I did.
For mental health, I tend to be pretty quick on that stuff. So I think you worded it very well when you said it's a good one-on-one book, and I thought that was really good, well stated, because it's a really good introductory to understanding some of the basics of the spectrum disorder, and it's a very good read for that, and it's facilitated or written in a manner that you can ask questions, that kids can talk to each other and ask questions, that mom and dad can ask questions, the kid can, and it's a really good read with that. So I actually enjoyed it at a level. It was just like, oh, okay. It wasn't trying to, you know, reshape people's like the neurology of what autism is, which sometimes people try to get into over their heads about speaking on it. So I thought that was really good. It wasn't trying to go into like, well, this is the psychology behind it. I'm like, I tend to read a lot of books on psychology and psychiatry, obviously, and it's just like, oh, this is really like your experience and your understanding and view of it, which I thought was like, that's what people need to see is your experience, your memoir, your view of it. I thought that was beautiful. So I just wanted to kind of make sure I state that right off the bat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Doc, if I could, oh, sorry, I don't mean to
Oh, no,
interrupt you for
no.
giving him flowers. So let me pause for a moment.
No, no, please go ahead.
Well, I just want to follow up that in addition to your points, Dr. Ramos, by the way, I'm Brit Payne. I'm a father of an autistic kid. I'm an entertainment attorney, and I speak a lot at Comic Cons and elsewhere about the intersection of autism and pop culture. And I'm the founder of the nonprofit The Autism Scene, which is a nonprofit dedicated to getting more explicitly autistic characters into kids pop culture, including running a screenwriting competition right now called the Auspeck Awards. And you can find out all about all of that at theautismscene.org. But the point that I wanted to make is, Tess, that your work not only is by an autistic person, which often you'll find writings about autism of this kind is not necessarily written by people who are autistic, or at least people who are specific. Even if you are autistic, you're not necessarily writing from the perspective of an autistic person. You might be trying to sort of, present a book without a particular point of view, just a factual book. But so not only is it from the point of view of an autistic person, but it is also largely, not always, but largely targeted towards autistic readers, helping them understand themselves. So that as a neurotypical person trying to help an autistic person, which is the situation I find myself in, I can look into it and say, oh, that's helping a person understand themselves a little bit, and I get to look in from the outside to sort of help them on that journey. And so it was a really nice piece to see for that reason as well, because it was speaking to the kids.
I wish I would have been able to see that book. So my son, who's Lee, how old is my son now? I don't even remember. God, I'm getting old.
He's like 20 something, 22,
20
Oh, the older one of the older ones.
Yeah. So
We're
my son,
talking Tommy for a second there.
no, Ozzy. So my son is autistic, and it's funny because like we all knew, and obviously I know, but it was never really explicitly stated, and I always was very careful, like to, and for whatever reason, it is what it is. I'm a human, is to normalize it as much as possible, whatnot. But I'll never forget the day when he walked into the kitchen. It was me, his sister, and my wife, and he just looked at us and just out of nowhere, he's like, guys, I think I'm autistic. And it was just like, we all just kind of looked like, and I'm like, I didn't have, and again, we're talking 20 years now, there wasn't a lot of material for him to read or for me to find, that he could kind of identify with. And I think that's the beauty of stuff like this, like it's funny because he went and read, I think we talked about Huck, and he
Yeah.
really liked Huck, and I'm like, man, why did, Brit, I think you said something well with that. It's like there is material out there about it, but it's not always necessarily autistic people writing about autism. It's always from the other perspective. So I think it's just it's good. So I am so glad. I'm waiting for it. I can't wait till it comes out because I want to push it as much as I can. Like it'll be on the top shelf, with me right behind it, going, "Hey, read this book. Read this book." It's a great thing. Sorry, I have spurts of energy to talk.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, no, please. I'm just taking all of this and I'm so
Yeah, there wasn't actually a
happy.
question there. It was just the great job, Tess.
I have a question. So,
Yes,
Okay,
please.
Lee.
I'm going to give you your flowers because again, I was able to, Tab was kind enough to send me it as well.
Okay,
Which, by the way,
we're
my name
we're
is
we're
Lee.
doing nice flowers because also
the ones you
the
smoke?
double entendre Craigslist flowers, and we're not doing that here.
Not one
Okay.
I'm familiar with.
I don't know what the
Nope.
devil's flowers is.
I don't know what that is
Oh,
either. That's news to
I
me.
didn't even know
Well,
Craigslist was still a
that's
thing.
good. I'm glad that you don't. It's a way that they used to get around the you can't solicit certain um how to put this, certain services. So you can't say, "Oh, I'll be
Oh.
nice to you if you give me money." So instead it would be flowers appreciated.
This sounds very Victorian. This sounds
yeah,
very Regency era.
Scarlet
Mr.
Letter.
Wickham shouldn't be trusted because he went on Craigslist to solicit certain flowers.
Never heard that. I'm intrigued.
You know, there for a while
You
after that
shouldn't be
Craigslist.
intrigued. You're happily married for at least the second time, or is it the third?
So,
So Lee,
yes, my question. I'm still
I'm
going to give you your
sorry.
flowers.
It's late at night for me,
It's
Tess,
I,
and
I
I
am very
also have
tired.
a
I'm
cold.
very loopy, and I will ask this question before we end today. So I enjoyed it. The artwork was wonderful. The dialogue, again, it was yeah, the 101. I'm going to continue with that because it was very informative to me in some ways too, not just from the sort of the neuro side of things, but also just the experiential side, which is typically where I operate from. Being that I'm a counselor, so I also see patients, and I've seen patients that have had autism as well. Um, so for me, the question would be, before I jump into even more higher praise, is what drew you to, pun intended, what drew you to write this book or do this book?
It was before 2020. It was sort of a last straw in a long line of documentaries and different stories coming from one point of view of autism, which usually it isn't people on the spectrum talking about it, and it's usually someone outside of it talking about someone who's on the autism spectrum. And in classic me, I just was a bit spiteful, and I was raising my hands and being like, you guys, like, there's so much more to this. And so I decided to write this book, and I decided to make it a comic book because that's how I function. I am a very visual thinker, and I've been doing comics professionally since 2011, and even long before that with just being a kid and making comics in classes. So then along with the age group, I decided middle school and up because there was a gap there for information. And middle school and up, that's when a lot of changes happen for kids. That's when a lot of social pressures start coming in. They are changing. And I remember a lot of hard times being in middle school. And it's not going to solve everything in that, but I'm really hoping that that information at least builds an understanding or is a foundation for understanding in that regard. So I did it for a lot of those reasons, but overall, it was before 2020, a lot of the same stereotypes kept coming up.
So it's a pretty long work. How many pages is it? It's at least
It
100
is
pages, right?
currently 190, but we reached
190.
past the stretch goal where we're adding more pages. So it
It's
might be
wonderful.
closer to 200 at this point.
Wow. Well, when you're writing a work that long, though, and especially when you're drawing it as well as writing it, um, by the time you get to page 175, you might find that something on page 5 is no longer fully accurate or no longer reflects how you feel. Were there things like that that came up, as especially in the world of autism, where there might be new discoveries today, or new ways of thinking, new forms of therapy, new encounters that you have in your personal life, where you're like, oh, I hadn't really thought about kids with this particular profile. So what are some things that you had to go back and change in order to fit your current thinking? And at what point do you say, like, okay, I'm done now, and if it has to change, it'll change in volume 2?
I would say two instances of that, because I write the script first and then I thumbnail and then I do the comic. And I had to do a bunch of edits in the script before even going into thumbnails. But with the chapter for masking, that was a whole chapter I added in near the end of this, because I read Dr. Devin Price's Unmasking Autism, and there was a lot that I had to do some introspection about, and a lot of things like, wow, this needs to be talked about, because it kept coming up more and more during and after the pandemic. And it was a light bulb moment of like, wow, explains a lot of feelings growing up and being where I am today. And the other one is monotropic thinking. That was also another big one that I realized, oh my God, I have to talk about this. So I made it into a little short comic towards one of the end chapters, just talking about some of the stuff that happens with monotropic thinking. It's when you are on that one track mindset, whether it be a special interest or a task or something like that. And so I made it a quick little summary of that at least will get people curious and jump off into their own research. But there was a point where I thought, okay, this is enough, because then I think more of the terms go more into academic and more, a lot more complicated in that regard. And I have to remind myself, this is a basic jumping off point.
Yeah, when masking appeared in the book, it felt like it was also part of your journey. We keep talking about the book as a 101, but it really is in a lot of ways your story, and then you sort of flesh out your own story, and then you realize there are things that are not part of your story that you also want to talk about. So it evolves more into the 101 over the course of the book, but early on it feels very much like it's your story. And when you get to masking in particular, it feels kind of like what you just described. As a reader, it feels like what you just described, where you got to a point in your life where you're like, oh, I just learned this term masking. I learned a little bit about what it means and how it can express itself. And maybe I have been masking. And maybe if I thought about that in my own life, I'd be happier. And
Yeah.
it feels like a revelation in the book. It feels like almost a dramatic point in the book, and not just as a recitation of the things that you know and can advise about autism.
If I could jump in, so you definitely did some good research, and it's funny because one of the things that stuck out in the beginning was NVLD, which for people listening, nonverbal learning disorder. Do you know I haven't heard that term in years? I had to take a whole year course of that when I was in my doctorate program, and I remember speaking to it, and nobody knew what that was, and I'm like, when I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, it's like so I was impressed. So I'll start with that, but
You
my
felt justified in having learned it. You're
I
like,
did. I was like,
finally it mattered. Finally, I'm
finally,
using calculus as an adult.
like it does help. So,
Yeah.
but my question is, when I have parents in there and kids, and they walk in, what would you like to be said or stated when a parent comes in and says, "Can I read this to my kid, to my child, or is it something I should let them read alone?"
I would say it depends on because they're the parent, they know best, but this is marketed to middle school and up. So if it's a kid that's younger, let the adult read it first and then decide whether or not to give it to read along with the kid or let them read it. Or if it's a kiddo that's, again, in middle school, um, I think it really depends on the developmental stage of the kid too. I have a lot of people in my life who are teachers, and not everyone is going to be the same in each grade. But I wanted this to be it's really tricky because I don't want to use generalizing blanket terms, but I do feel like in middle school, I think it should be safe to let the kiddos read the book, and hopefully they're in a space where they can ask questions.
Perfect. Next part. This one's an easier question, but it may be a hard answer. Will there be a Spanish version?
Ooh, I
A
would
great question.
love, oh my God, I would love there to be um it translated in all languages, to be honest, but that would
I'm a
mean they
little
would
biased.
I I know, I wish I had all the money to pay translators. That's the thing. I really want there to be all the money in the world to pay all the translators for their hard work because it is hard work to translate.
Mhm.
Um
Dr. Ramos, can I ask you a question along those lines? I'm not a Spanish speaker at all, but my guess is that a translation of a work like this would not just be about the translation of the words, maybe some changes that would also need to account for cultural differences with among Spanish speakers versus among English speakers. Is there anything that stands out to you either in this in Tess's book or generally in the autism world where you'd want to approach it differently?
So,
And while you sort of ruminate on that, because I know you're sick, I want to give you a second. Let me tell you a quick story about Sesame Street when they wanted to bring it over to Russia. And so they sort of handed it over to Russian educators and said, okay, can you do it? And they did the equivalent of D is for depression. And 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 the Sesame Street people in America were like, all right, well, that's cool that you tried that, but maybe we don't want to talk about depression, even if that's the word that you commonly use when you're doing your alphabets in Russia. And then when they translated it to the Middle East, they had on different sides of Sesame Street were the different communities because it was about trying to figure out how to make community across the street, which was important in the Middle East at that time. So translating a work like this sometimes can involve more than just the words. And so I wonder if you had any thoughts about like autism education or this work in particular that would could use a little bit of a reorienting to account for cultural differences among Spanish speakers.
So that's an important part to it is that it's not, you're absolutely right. It's not just translating the words because I mean, there's words in each of our language that just don't translate evenly. Like we have a word that it's called cariño, which it's about a paragraph to translate it in English. Like it just
Mhm.
there's not a word that's in English that works very well. And for those of you that don't know, I actually learned to speak English and read English reading Captain America comics. So it's a very huge thing for me to how this relates. So it's capturing the idiosyncrasies in our languages. That's going to be very important in this book. So it's not just a translation service that would be required. It's someone that's actually bilingual, bicultural. And I think that's where
Mm.
it's going. So it's actually because when in translating, then they would understand the references. So they would have to understand both cultures to be able to really reference it. And even within that, it would be, well, which Spanish are we referring to? Because Puerto Rican Spanish is different than Colombian Spanish, then from Mexican Spanish to Spain Spanish. So it's like it's really a matter of which Spanish are we talking at? And really, I think the short answer is they would have to be bilingual, bicultural to really understand those idiosyncrasies within both cultural parameters and well versed in it.
Yes, it
For
sounds like
sure.
Dr.
I
Ramos is
will
auditioning for the job.
I will hold on one second. I need to move myself to a different room. I'm terribly sorry.
That's okay. We'll keep it going.
That I gave you my answer. What I'd be interested in
I
doing.
I saw that.
So I
Um,
appreciate your patience with me.
Oh,
I
there you go.
appreciate this is the part of the
I will
podcast that I wish to cut out a little bit to edit.
Nah. But Tess, you
if
can hear us.
you remind me, but otherwise I'll give a similar answer to yours to Dr. Ramos' question. I think I would tell parents what I tell parents with any book is that it's never a bad idea for you to read it first and decide whether or not you think your kids are ready for it. And if
Yes.
you need to ask me that question, then you should be reading it. Um,
Yeah.
you shouldn't put the responsibility on knowing what your kids are ready for on the person working the counter.
I mean, that's tricky with other kinds of books, right? Because if I'm just trying to find a middle grade, graphic novel for
Yeah.
my 10-year-old daughter who is a mature person but isn't ready for, sex stuff, then,
Well, and
then
I
I
mean, I'll
appreciate the
answer as
book
many.
giving me sort of that kind of
Yeah,
guideline so I can just buy it. But when it's something
yeah,
like this, which is really a teaching text that I feel like it
right,
is worth taking the time and it's the responsibility of the parent to sit down and figure out,
yeah.
does this work for
But
my kid?
even with the other stuff, I'm a big fan of like you should ask the vendor any question you want, and they should do their best to answer you, and they should be honest about whether or not they read the book. But at the end of the day, like the parent knows their kid, and the parent makes the decision on whether to, this is kind of the teacher in me too that gets so frustrated when it's like you hear about, thank God, not too much at my school, but the parents that want this book or that book pulled out of the library because they don't want, I'm like, well, then like, A, have you read it? And B,
Yeah.
Tess, I
Maybe
had
uh,
a question. In reading it in the text of it, it seemed like you were pretty clearly influenced by, I'm assuming manga and definitely anime and other cartoons on television. But as you work on your own style, even the cartoons that you put at the end are of a slightly different style than the bulk of the book. What influences do you feel like brought you to make the book look like this? I have a couple of guesses, and I'm not really an anime or manga reader that much, so I see a little bit of that in there. But it also feels like the storytelling structure and the way you present your narrative, they remind me of somebody specific, and I'm just curious, what you feel like your influences are.
So, style wise, with how I draw my characters, a lot of that, it's a progression over the years, but one that definitely influenced me was Rumiko Takahashi. Like early on in middle school, I got to read some Ranma One Half, and later on, I watched Inuyasha. That was one of my favorite series growing up. And later in high school, a lot of Mike Mignola's Hellboy was very influential, and Svetlana Shimakova, who is a Russian born but Canadian comic book creator who I looked up to quite a bit. Later on, well, and actually, Avatar: The Last Airbender was a huge influence as well, too, especially with facial expressions and learning muscular anatomy and action. I would say later on in college, I got really into Jeff Smith's Bone, and his brushwork was beautiful, and his stylization with body movement and silhouette design was really influential. How I told this story was actually inspired by Erica Moen's Ojoy Sex Toy Comics because she presents information in such an open dialogue, and the way that she presents information was easy for me to understand because, again, I live in America and we our sex education, including sex health, wasn't always the best. And so this really helped fill in the gaps. And I really wanted to present information in a way that was open invitation for questions and open invitation to not be yelled at if you didn't know something.
That's awesome. How much did you change since you're a character in the book? How much did you change your personality? How do you compare the real you to the you in the book?
I curse more in real life because I'm with my adult friends, not at work. I substitute words like Jimmy Crackers or what the fudge when I'm in public because I know there's kids and parents. But with my friends, I do curse a lot more. But personality wise, I would say it's a 1-to-1. I am that ridiculous. I am that silly, and I do kind of get exasperated, and my face, I do have a big face that just kind of, whether or not I intend to, sort of emotes what I'm thinking internally. Oh, English is hard. I don't know about Spanish speaking, but English is so
Yes,
hard.
it is. Yes. I want to go back to masking just because, because it was a term that I came across later in life too, and I've started, and it's late at night. I forget the book that you quoted a minute ago, but go ahead. You
No,
looked like you were
was
going to say it to me.
was it the book that what was it one of the influences or a different?
Yeah,
Was it
the unmasking
Unmasking.
book that you have in
yes,
Unmasking.
Unmasking
in your
by Dr.
bibliography.
Devin. Yes, Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devin Price.
Right. So it wasn't my first introduction to masking. My wife dove down the autism rabbit hole for me because she's the pro researcher. So she's always giving me, "Hey, is this something that this seems like you?" So I'd actually already like come across some more user-friendly unmasking guide tools when I came across Devin Price's book. And I'd started listening to it, unfortunately, in November of 2024. So it very quickly became like it was too much for me to handle on top of the world, and I had to set it aside. But it's you reminded me that I need to get back to it because it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying it. It was like, oh yeah, uh-huh, I had that experience. I had that experience. I'm gonna go cry now. I need to pull off.
Oh my God. Yeah, there's some people out there that really hit home with those feelings, and
Yeah.
I am so inspired by them.
Yeah. No, but I have to, I mean, I guess the question that comes to this, and I promise I have a way more fun question next. Um, like I have a love-hate relationship with like learning more about autism outside of trying to just learn about how to manage my own life because like on one side, it makes me feel so seen. It helps me feel I had the same suicidal tendencies that you wrote about. It helps me feel less like there was something wrong with me all of those years. But at the same time, it takes me back to all of those years. And I'd already kind of moved on from there having been something wrong with me. And while on one side it helps me move even further on from there was something wrong with me, it's still like, oh, oh, that wasn't something wrong with me. That was the people around me wanted me to be and or do something that I just literally wasn't equipped to be or do.
Yeah.
Um, so do you have, I mean, when you're dealing, I mean, for that matter, writing 200 pages of this, like, does it take an emotional toll at times? Are you able to separate from it? How do you manage the
I think
stuff
it's
with the
both.
stuff?
Yeah. Oh my God. It is actually both because with some of the sections and talking about the science of autism and different ways to experience it, it is very, it's more of a joyful explanation and exploration. But with the emotional stuff, yeah, no. So I will say in 2021, while I was working on this book, my mother passed away from
Oh,
stage
I'm so
4
sorry.
neoblastoma brain cancer. Thank you.
Mm.
And when I was drawing out the pages with her trying to connect with me around the mirror, and I was literally crying. We'd just gotten the service done, and I just gone through so many photos of my parents and my mom. And so visually, I had a clearer idea of how to draw her, but also I was just, during certain chapters, I was crying or I
Right.
was putting a lot of emotion into it because it was taking me back to those moments. And
Right.
yeah, and with that on top of the suicidal ideation, which is another reason why I say, parents, I need you to read this book before you give it to a kiddo to go off on their own with, because these are topics that, though unpleasant, do need to be talked about. It's one
Right.
of those truths, along with sex ed and um, bullying, that we do
Yeah.
need to confront. And I realized early on in writing comics and writing in general, in order to connect with people, in order to have this information stick, I need to open up my heart veins and just put myself in there, whether it's through fiction or through an educational book like this, and say, you're not alone. I was there, and I want you to know that if you're feeling this, this is what I've learned. It is not you. And I want you to stay. So many people want you to stay. And it is really tough.
Yeah. It's funny. The your mirror scenes hit me too, but more because I remembered that I did that and nobody knew why. And like, if anything, I was made fun of by family for it. They didn't mean anything, but I remember like trying to stop doing it as much because I'd overhear it. Like, they never did it to me, but I remembered being in the spare chair at like a beauty salon and like the beautician and my grandmother and my mom talking about boys being weird because they were always making faces in the mirror.
My dad actually, oh my God, my dad actually, so at the family dinner table, we had a mirror right at the dinner table, and my mom had to put it away and say, listen, your dad is making faces in the mirror. And I always made faces in the mirror too. And so
I,
I don't know what it is. It may just be a little bit of that narrow spice going through the family genes, or it could just be like,
I mean, there's a lot of evidence for genetic uh Dr. Ramos, you're allowed to say goodbye. You don't
Sorry,
have to just write to us.
sorry guys.
He has to go do doctor work.
Oh, they make me work. Tess, awesome book. I can't wait to get it and market it and push it and have others read it. I'm gonna have my son read it as well. All of
Yeah.
it's been great, wonderful. And let's talk about that Spanish translation. Take
I
care.
want to talk to
It-
Lindsay and
yeah.
Dale about translations for sure. Yes.
You guys take care, everybody.
You
Because
too.
Dr. Ramos is the wild man who is the dean of a psychology school, owns a how many locations does the practice have, Lee?
Oh my goodness. Right
If
now we currently have three. Yeah, because I run his practices. So he's a dean at a local university, a licensed clinical psychologist at a private practice where we have three different locations in the Chicagoland area.
And
He
he's
also
got
does,
like a dozen people working under him, and
yep,
just for kicks, he bought a comic shop in November.
yeah, he's a very busy
Living
guy.
the dream.
A- 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 And he's got a 6 and a 4-year-old running around the house.
He's a busy man.
Are you sure he's not from Krypton? Are you sure? Are you sure
I
that
wonder
he's
sometimes.
I don't. I'm glad you said that off air. So, but if he listens to this,
No, it was
that
totally
hedge.
on air. He'll just have to listen. He's not here anymore.
Yeah,
I didn't stop recording, Lee.
yeah. Well, if he ever listens to it, sorry.
No,
Because
actually, I
I'm very
think really
tired.
what it comes down to is Sam, who gets her doctor in May, pretty much does the work for running the practices and definitely does the work for raising the kids. And I think does more of the comic shop work than we know about. So I think Sam is from Krypton
Oh,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's Lois
Well,
she.
Lane.
Oh,
I
he's
tell her
Lois
every
Lane.
time I see her, she is a real life Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
kills it.
And that's right. No, Sam wouldn't be happy with being from Krypton. Sam
Lee's
is
concern
from
is they're going to both start to look like Hector Hammond.
all right, I promise you a more fun question. Um I was regularly and I was trying to find a great example and I just found too many, so I'm just gonna regularly really impressed with the way you used the medium to tell the story better than it could possibly be told in any other medium. I mean, I just wound up with the random page where you're zoomed in on the table and then come back out at the table.
That's a good one.
Um, there was another, oh, I remember the one that caught my eye immediately. It was in you had the teacher and the student, and behind them you had two charts of ability. Yeah, there we are, of different abilities in learning.
Yeah, yeah.
It might have been two students, but I read it as a teacher and a student. And it's like the teacher's strong in this and the student's strong in that. And that can lead to interesting. And you weren't even specifically saying that, but it's like it's in there, and that's one of the great things about the comic medium is like you can tell parts of the story that you're not going to take the energy to take or aren't necessarily necessary for every reader. You can pass along the things implicitly rather than explicitly or through the arts without supporting them with the words. And yeah, so I appreciated that. I asked this of every cartoonist. um how hard do you think about that and how much of it comes naturally?
God. Well, my brain is very visual, so I think it's just translating it's like Google translates. There was a trend of trying to translate a song and then translating it through hundreds of languages and then back to English and having it sort of it is. I'm visual thinking. It's also audio thinking. So it's like cartoons playing in my head and then trying to put that through a script so that I can edit the words and everything. And then I try and translate that into thumbnails and pictures. So it is a bit of dreaming, and it's the initial thought idea, then translation, and then execution, which I'm so thankful that it's communicated well to you guys. I'm really glad that my ideas are coming in clear to you. That is the most important part of comics is clear communication. And I've learned
I
that
mean,
early
we're
on from
we're your
trial and error.
target audience, so let's cross our
Yeah.
fingers for the next step.
So, and this is, I promised you earlier I was going to give you higher praise. And I apologize. I'm very tired. So if it doesn't make sense, please let me know.
This is actually
Um,
the third podcast in a row Lee has been with me on, and they've
yeah,
been progressively later each night.
every
We
time.
did 7, then we did 8:30, then we did 9.
Oh my gosh.
So
But the high praise that I have for you, and I'm still new into the comic community, comic world, and there's a lot of catching up or reading that I need to do. But yours did something that I have not experienced with any other comic. And I'm actually going to reference the Saga podcast that Ted and I are on, which deals
last
with
night.
last night, that deals with its own sort of dynamics. I'll save that for another day. But your comic helped me to look at it through the lens of a parent. In that, what would I do in that situation, right? And that's where I was really thankful. Like I, for a moment, was like, and excuse my language, but it was like, yeah, what the fuck would I do? Like there, I wouldn't. I'm educated. I can do work with them therapeutically, but like as a parent, that's a different level. So like for me, and why I relate that, and I love Saga. I'm a die-hard Saga fan, and Tad and I can talk for days on that. And there's parents in there, and there's grandparents in there, but I never empathize with those characters. But yours, I did. So like for me, and again, just that sort of higher praise of it was very well written, illustrated, and um, human. It was very human. Like, how would I go about that in a very caring and nurturing way? Because yeah, the mirror scene with you and mom was like, yeah, okay, I think I could do that. Like that's okay. And so again, high praise for you.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, that just thank you. That was it's a real goal of mine in comics to make it human. Even when I do more fantastical content and fiction, that was always something that struck me with the stories I love is that human emotion and connection. Even in especially Guillermo del Toro's work, when I first watched Hellboy and then dove right into the comics, there was this very human element of a father and son and
Mhm.
having these having these beings that were different and the parents saying, "No, I love you," despite that. And even talking to parents while making this book, different, like, I didn't have as many autistic folks to talk to during this book before 2020, but talking with different teachers and parents and other folks, it is that struggle of they were really scared and saying, "What do I do? How do I talk to you?" And it is that real, especially with the scene with my mom in the mirror, that was such an important story to her because that was when we started connecting.
Right.
Hey, yeah,
Um,
thank you for that. And I do apologize. I need to go to bed.
you need to go to
There's
bed.
Good night,
what
Lee.
I don't know where you're at, but I know I'm like my state's closer to Canada. You guys, you don't need to say sorry so much. I don't think any of us are in Canada. I mean, come on.
I guess it's Midwest.
You
I'm in
know, I think
Illinois.
Yeah.
sometimes we wish we were.
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
But
Oh, so
then,
it's wishful thinking.
but then we would have said sorry.
Oh,
We,
oh,
we'd we'd
oh,
have
sorry.
better health
Oh,
care.
sorry, bud.
Oh my God, yes.
No, but thank you, Tess. And again, I look forward to now that I know Dr. Ramos invested in the retailer version. I look forward to that. And yes, thank you so much. Uh,
Well, and maybe we'll try to drag her out from Montana to the scary city sometime.
I would
we're,
appreciate that.
we're in the suburbs. We're on the outskirts. So we should be fine.
Hey, I
I
visited
mean, at least
Seattle
to people in
before.
South Dakota, we don't count as the outskirts. We're still the scary city. Talk to Kelly about her family sometime. You're moving
So,
to Chicago. That's scary.
well, y'all have a
You know
wonderful
they
night.
got lots of guns there.
Oh,
So
thank you. Thank you so
South
much. You
Dakota.
too.
Take
Uh,
care.
Tess, if I could ask you, you had two places in the book where you talked a little bit about representation of autism in pop culture.
Yes.
And that's something that I've obviously focused on a bunch over the last couple of years. And I just kind of wanted to give you a chance to talk about what you talked about in the book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm so happy with more and more representation that we're seeing nowadays. But it's still like I agree that it's still got a long way to go. And a lot of times growing up, I felt more akin to non-human characters in that regard because and I've been thinking about this. One of my favorite forms of storytelling is monster media, and it's because they invite the other. And so many people feel othered out for so many reasons, whether it's different cultures or different races or part of the LGBTQIA community. And for me being autistic, there were characters in that field that were like, oh, I understand how that feels. I understand having my senses heightened. I understand how it feels to be to dress up as someone who I'm not just to survive. Um, I understand those feelings. And when, how do I put this in the nicest way? And then when there was representation of autism that wasn't written by a person on the spectrum, and it was very, it didn't feel like it was me. It felt more like it was a stereotype. And it didn't make it, I didn't connect with those characters. So um, I'm really happy now that there are more characters. One of my favorite examples is actually from Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. And it's an Australian show taking place in the 20s. And there's an episode called The Mad Blood of Joanna. And there's this woman in academia who you can see she's clearly neurodivergent. It's very akin to autism in that she loves schedules. She only eats jam sandwiches. She's not getting the cues from all these other people in the university that are totally against her. And it's such a good episode because it felt very real, and it wasn't a cut and paste, oh, here's the parameters of autism. It was, this is a person on the spectrum with this gender in this time period in this culture.
But in the medium that you've chosen, how about in comics in general? I mean, so I know literally you are now in my presentation, by the way, but I know literally every explicitly autistic character who's appeared in comic books.
I think we find a new one for you every once in a while.
They're popping up. This week was a big week, actually. I got 3 new ones this week. One in DC Comics, your book, and the other one that you sent me, Ted.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool. You'll have to give me that list because I think the only ones that I grew up with were Mantis from Aquaman, like someone.
Black Manta, yeah.
Yeah, Black Manta. He was supposed to be autistic. And then the only other one nowadays people are pointing out more and more is Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Has he been made explicitly autistic? I didn't know that.
I don't think he's been made explicitly, but I
not
think he
explicitly.
fits.
I think there's certain adaptions that lean more towards that characterization that people are really excited about. But I have not anything in comics that was explicit. I didn't really have any that were explicitly autistic.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that is not at all surprising, just because most of the autistic characters have happened, explicitly autistic characters happened within the last 10 years. It's shocking that you knew of the Black Manta one because it was only one issue of one comic book in 2003 that I also happened to read and remembered 20 years later when I sat down to make this presentation.
But that's actually one of the famous ones.
Famous now.
I don't know why.
It was also a bad representation. It was. Well,
I think that's
I take
why.
that back.
I think that's why.
If you were doing it today, you wouldn't do it the same way that it was done 20 years ago for a lot of different reasons.
Probably,
but I also think he got the word in there, and it worked. And so, one of my bailiwicks is let's keep him autistic. Just do a better job with it.
Yeah, exactly. No, oh my gosh. Oh, the fun possibilities of having an autistic writer do Black Manta and what they could do with that. Oh my God. Because thinking about it, being underwater must be so much less stimuli than being on the surface. And I mean, if his special interest is the ocean and all the creatures and stuff, oh my God, the infinite possibilities with writing Black Manta, mantas being literally autistic would be so much fun. I feel like that's
your pitch.
Yeah. Maybe he's just like, no, I would rather be in the water, Aquaman. I don't know why you want to go on land. Everything is loud and there are too many smells. I don't know what you are doing.
And
I
the
think you're
wind,
crazy.
all that wind.
All that wind, yeah.
to reference your character in the book.
Oh, I definitely was having a hard time with wind movement in air as a child. That's not even a joke.
I wonder how much we're going to see a change in both representation and in the number of people who are either diagnosed or self-identify as neurodivergent having the writing chores as we get more. I mean, again, uh, I wasn't autistic until I was 32.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So to a certain extent, like I wonder how much we'll start seeing a shift just as we have people who wouldn't have been because I mean, knowing so many people in comics, I will tell you that there have been autistic people writing autistic characters. They may not have been diagnosed as autistic, and the characters aren't always explicitly autistic. But that has more to do with the lack of language than the the writers themselves, or I mean, one of the reasons this podcast is such a release for me is I've like found my people, not just in terms of a love for comics and surprisingly a lot of love for baseball, um but in terms of there are a lot of neurodivergent people in comics, like a lot of neurodivergent people in comics. And some of them are aware of it, and some of them are less so, and some of them have old school diagnosis. There's a lot of people that
Mhm.
have like the OCD diagnosis, but they don't have a spectrum diagnosis, or they have ADHD diagnosis, but they don't have a spectrum diagnosis. Lots of borderline personality diagnosis without a spectrum diagnosis. A lot of things that like, I mean, when you and I sometimes talk about the statistics of autism rates, because I'm a huge stat head, one of the things that I want to know before I will actually say that autism is going up is there are all of these things that we know we used to diagnose people
Mhm.
when we probably should have been diagnosing them as autistic. So unless you can't show me that those diagnoses are going down, because I bet you they are, I mean, it's more than just do we have a higher rate of diagnosis? Are we having more people tested? Is like
Yeah.
is it? I mean, how if you don't mind me asking, Tess, how old are you?
I'm 35. I just turned 35
Right,
yesterday.
right.
Happy
Well,
birthday.
happy birthday.
Thank you.
Which almost makes it shocking that you got a early diagnosis
I
because you
know.
were a girl.
I
Girls
know.
aren't supposed to be autistic.
My friend was joking with me last night because of that stereotype, saying, wow, I guess Tess is secretly like a trans girl then because girls aren't supposed to be autistic. And this is a trans man saying this joke. He
Right.
looked at me. It just, we all cracked up
But
at
but I mean that's the thing is like if you dig into the data, like affluent white male autism rate has been pretty flat for a while now. What's
that.
rising is female autistic rate,
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic and black autism rates, poor white male autism rate.
I think that is mostly the societal walls coming up.
Right,
I think the numbers were always there, but our
right.
perceptions are opening up. My
I think so too.
grandfather, yeah, my grandfather used to always ask, "Oh, where are these gay people coming from? There weren't as many gay people back in my day." And I said, "Grandpa, it's kind of like being a Jewish person in Germany. You're not going to say you're Jewish. You're going to keep that to yourself during Nazi Germany occupation."
It's almost a step further though, because sometimes it was just a lack of language. Like
Yeah.
one of the rabbit, one of my newer hyperfixations, and it's one that really makes me wish that I was better at foreign languages, is just the study of language. And it all came out of the Stereo Lab episode on colors, because
Mm.
as it turns out, in every language except Egyptian, the last color to get a word was blue.
Ooh.
And they started digging into why. The only place in the world where there's a naturally occurring blue in nature is there's a natural occurring blue flower along the Nile. There's no other naturally occurring blue in nature. People will bring up the sky and water and that sort of thing, but they've done more recent tests of like how long you can go before anybody asks what the sky is or what color it is. And if you go out of your way not to tell kids about it, they won't say anything about it for shockingly long times. But where I got really, really fascinated is there was a test done in the 80s where they found an Aboriginal tribe in the Amazon that still didn't have a word in their language for blue. And they took a 9 square with shades of green to blue and blue green in between, and they had them use words for them, and they described them all as green. In fact, the blue square, they said, looked identical to one of the other blue squares. They thought there were 8 different colors on the page rather than 9 because they didn't have a word for it. Their brain adjusted it to something that they did have a word for. So this is actually one of the places where I totally agree with Brit that it's really important to get the explicit autism out there because not having the word for it matters.
Yes.
And that's a place I've come around, I think, since our first conversation, Brit.
I can be very persuasive.
Well, I never fully disagreed with you, but like the more I look at how much having language for things matters, and this goes back to the translation thing, and how a good translation, and we had a whole episode on translations, and I hope to have more, because a good translation involves not just taking one language and putting it into another, but you need to localize it. You need to work with idiom. You need to figure out whether, okay, does this joke translate? If it doesn't, well, this is what I'm trying to convey. Can you think of something that fits the story well enough that conveys the same meaning? And sure, maybe the literal translation type who reads both versions of the book will go, why are you talking about a duck here when it was talking about a cigarette there?
Yeah.
But we're laughing for the same reason.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I have two notes for different parts of what you just said because I think that is very poignant.
I put way too much into it.
No, that was great. I was learning so much from that. I did not realize that Egypt was the only other culture with blue. When you were talking about
the first culture that had blue.
Culture. Yes. So
a word for
my
blue.
One of my friends pointed this out with the Japanese language because the word for blue and green was midori. Because with the mountains up close, it's green, but with atmospheric perspective, which is the oxygen and hydrogen in the air farther away from the mountain, it becomes more blue. But because they didn't have a word for it's just both blue and green. And again, there was no science behind the atmospheric perspective. So that just reminded me of that so much on that term. So yes, you are right that the language for explicit autistic characters, explicit autistic experiences is so important because it brings out the blue against all the green. And
I like that. I'm gonna have to use that one.
Very good.
Brings out the blue against all the green.
Yes.
She's the writer.
Yeah, what was translation wise? What was that point about translation? It's
idiom jokes.
It was I read a book. My friend recommended a book called Misquoting Jesus, and it was about the translation of the Bible throughout the ages and different cultures because it comes from I believe it was the Middle East, Palestine or Israel that the faith came from. And the translation of the Bible has been so wrought because it was like Google's translates again. They had to localize it. They had to edit it. They had to figure out different wording for it throughout
I
the
They
years.
haven't
had to
read that
satisfy
book.
their patrons. That's something
That
something
too.
that with all of this, anytime you're talking about any kind of art or literature, you got to remember, especially historically, but even now, you've got masters who are writing
Right.
paychecks or that you are trying to earn fees from. You're writing
Right.
to an audience. And so if you think that your audience is not going to, as you were saying, Tess, not going to respond to bad words, or inappropriate language or whatever, even if that's the right thing to write aesthetically, you are still thinking about who are the other people in the equation. So
Right.
it also includes the patrons. King James Bible,
Right.
was
Yes.
paid for by King James, and you'll
King
bet that there's a
James
couple of things in there that King
put his
James would
name's
like.
name on it. I don't think he actually translated it himself.
He didn't
Out
translate
that
it
way.
himself, but he did, and he had there's a little joke in there. Psalm 44, I think it is, with Shakespeare. That if you look, it's something like the 44th word in is shake, and the 44th word from the end is spear, and
Right.
in
Oh,
Psalm 44, and when it was published in whatever 15 oh whatever, it was Shakespeare's 44th birthday, and so there was there are little things in there that you can find that are little gifts that were made for King James himself.
that's so
See,
funny. That's
see,
so
I grew up
funny.
I grew up in Wheaton, Illinois, which is uh we're going to use sarcasm, but I don't always use sarcasm well, which I affectionately refer to as the Bible Belt of the Midwest, home of the Billy Graham Center. So I had to learn my Bible to deal with my bullies
Oh.
and learn about the Bible to deal with my bullies. And one of my favorites was when like they would insist that it was the literal word of God, and I'm like, well, I mean, then God's a really weird writer, because like the beginning here says this is Paul writing to the Romans. Why is God saying this is Paul? Um, but okay, God wrote every word of it. He touched the writers. It's what about the translators? Did he touch all of the translators? Because it's been through a few languages. Have you ever played telephone?
So, okay. One of my favorite facts about the translation from the monks is two things. One, not all of the monks were literate. So they were looking at the shape of the words. And sometimes with these, it's sort of like a copy of a copy. They would miss copy a word, a letter, and it would translate differently depending on the
Right.
language.
I believe it.
Secondly, and this one's my favorite, and especially in Ireland, not every place in Europe had the best drinking water. And you know who had some great foods were churches. So a lot of people would go into the church, and this included beer. And at one point, apparently, because they got so sloshed, because there wasn't a lot of good drinking water, a monk had written the word for drunken Irish on a column of a copy of a Bible that he was basically copying for the masses. So sometimes it was trying to translate, sometimes it was to satisfy the patrons. Sometimes it was a misquote because weren't literate, and then it was because they were drunk.
And see, like where I would always really come back to is like it's also a real shame, because there are a lot of great lessons in that book, but you need to look at it on a whole, and you need to look at it through certain lenses. And as soon as you start deciding that you absolutely understand and that everything is, I mean, aside from like conflicting itself, that everything is right and goes through all of the ages rather than just for the time it was written, you're gonna run into problems. uh Mark Russell's written some great comics about this. I recommend Second Coming. I recommend God is Disappointed in You. That's for our listeners and for you if you haven't read them already.
Oh my gosh, that sounds great. I'm getting all kinds of good recommendations. I'm so happy the comics industry is booming to at this point and going into so many genres. It's fantastic.
Yes, I have a recommendation
No,
for you. It's Invisible Differences.
Ooh.
such a good
It's
book.
a really good book. It's a
Yes.
graphic novel by a French woman who wrote about her experience, spoiler alert, getting a late in life diagnosis of autism. And
Oh my gosh.
it's a lovely book.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Well,
gonna
I
have to.
mean, this one is barely available, and she got a very late diagnosis, and it's only part of it, but she's a brilliant cartoonist. Tess Fowler's autobiography. is now available through her website, which I have to go look up the name of the book again because I have too many book names in my head, unless
Take the
Brit remembers
Fall.
it. What?
It's called Take the Fall. Tess
Take
Fowler
the Fall.
Gutierrez.
Ooh.
Yeah. Tess Fowler Gutierrez.
It's a hard
Uh,
read. It's not an easy
no,
read.
I will warn you, it's not an easy read. Like content warnings for breast cancer, for childhood neglect, for sexual assault, you name it, all kind of came together as she dealt with her breast cancer journey during a pandemic.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God.
Right. But she's a brilliant cartoonist and turned it into something really, really beautiful. And like where it wound up hitting me the most, and here I am spoiling the end of her book. I think she'll forgive me. Um, is she and her husband both got late diagnosis after all of this stuff that started making so many things start to fall into place. It's like, oh,
And then if you want to
so
read a
it's
really uplifting, very
yes.
recent representation of autism in comics, specifically the DCKO, The Kids Are All Fight Special, came out last week, a week ago tomorrow. Jeremy Adams is the writer, and it is essentially a Teen Titans type thing, young heroes all gathering together to fight something. And there's a character called Fairplay, who's the child of Mr. Terrific, who was the breakout character from the Superman movie over the summer. And Jeremy wrote, and the first thing we see is he's explicitly autistic. And so this is the first explicitly autistic DC Comics superhero in comics. And so it's a very nice little presentation. There are two. One, it's named explicitly when they describe the character, and then the second instance of referring to it, it has his buddy. So he's got a buddy, explaining that like essentially his ability to do this is part of the expression of his being on the spectrum. And so it's it's a very lovely, positive portrayal. Now it leans towards the autism superhero trope, but because
Mm.
it's a superhero comic book, but surprisingly not as heavily as it has elsewhere. You know, it actually, to me, it didn't send up my spidey sense about that particular issue.
Would have been
I
even cooler though if they'd had Rose Stein and Ted Brandt draw the issue
Ooh.
I
because
mean,
they're autistic.
you
Ooh.
know, yes. However, in this journey, we're going to need a lot of allies. And
Yes.
so it's great
And they
that
did, and
to
they did
non-autistic. Actually, I
draw
don't know.
the
For all I know, the artist is autistic, so I can't say one way or the other.
well, yeah, no,
Um,
I don't know
But
either. And they
but
did get to draw Harley Quinn's Fartacular, the scratch and sniff comics. So I mean, they've been taken care of.
Well, I think the other thing you brought up a good point about the stereotype of autism being a superpower. That being
and you
in
brought that
this,
up in your book too, as something that
Yeah.
you have your sensors up for.
yeah. Well, I think in this case, in this comic, it negates that because everyone's a superhero in that comic,
Right.
and
Kind of. I
so
mean, look, you could still fall into it. It's just that
yeah.
this particular presentation didn't.
Good, yes, yeah. No, you're
I
right
didn't
about
think, at
that
least
too.
different people might feel different things, but my
No,
perception.
no, yeah. No, but you're right about that. That is a very tricky trope to slip into because, and yeah, this is again, it comes from a very well-meaning place, but it negates the struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, my
My
thesis is if with volume, that stuff becomes less of an issue. Right? If you have one
Mm,
black character on a show, and on an entire network, let's say, or an entire evening slate, or sitcoms in the late 70s, if there's only going to be one black character, that one black character has to bear the weight of representing all black people, which of
oh my God,
course
yeah.
we now have a better understanding is unfair and unrealistic. And now when you can look across your television shows and see all different types of black characters, any one presentation doesn't really stand out as bearing that kind of weight. And so if one character does have the autism superpower and another character doesn't, and then there are 50 other different presentations of autism, the one who's standing out as a superpower, autism, isn't as much of an issue as it might feel when it's the only representation, when the only representation we have is Rain Man, and he's got a superpower. And so then suddenly he's bearing the weight that autism parents or parents of autistic kids are being asked, "What's your kid's superpower?"
Oh my God, yes. Oh, the Rain Man trope. Yes, yeah. No, that is an exact good point right there. That yeah, with more of a varying cast of people of color and people of different genders and neurodiversity, in that the amount of people on that helps negate the stereotype,
Yeah.
and less weight is carried by one person, along with um, the lovely Rain Man sort of a comparison. I usually think about this sometimes. Sometimes when someone says something really off-putting to me about autism, sometimes when I'm in a stressed state, I really just want to say, "Would you say that about someone who's Black? Would you say something like that to a Black person or a person in a wheelchair or something?" Because it just sounds as bad as when you say something that blatant to someone who's different to you on any other scale. Like, for example, you two are autistic people, you'll get along just fine. And I say, would you? I never said this to anyone, but I think to myself sometimes, would you say that to two people who are Black in the same room? Oh, you two are Black, you two would get along great. That sounds
I
as
mean,
bad.
they leave out the word black, but they often introduce them.
There's a funny scene in When Harry Met Sally that addresses that very issue, and it's, "Oh, you two are from New Jersey. You'll have a lot in common, won't you?" "Yeah, where are you from?" "West Orange." "Where? How about you?" "Haddonfield." And then they're silent and they turn away from each other because, as a person from New Jersey, I know one of them is essentially suburban New York and the other is suburban Philly, and ne'er the twain shall meet.
Exactly
Um,
it.
yeah. Um, I gotta get out my superpower thought because it's something that a conversation that I have had with a number of my students. It's definitely one of the ways that that they will find out that I'm legit when I say I do understand some of the things they're going through, is that like every autistic superpower is also a curse. We do absolutely have superpowers. Like it's great that I can hear all of the different conversations in the room individually. There are lots of great things that come out of that. It's also really, really horrible that I can't tone out any of the conversations in the room and turn them into background noise rather than specific conversations that I'm hearing every word of individually.
Oh my God. Oh no.
Noise canceling headphones have become my best friend.
They say diamonds are a girl's best friend. Nuh-uh. Get her to Best Buy and get those big chunky headphones.
Yeah. Um, you know, and like what I love about your book, what I think we're talking about here, is that it does show, because your personal story, without even bothering to say, "Hey, I'm a atypical autism story," because you're not really an atypical autism story, except that everybody's an atypical autism story. There is no typical autism story.
No. No, there's
Um,
not.
is that you're showing that, oh, there are things that are harder, there are things that are easier. Just like for more and more, I'm becoming convinced that we're not the minority.
Yeah.
I think like 60% of the population may be neurodivergent. The problem is the 40% that doesn't, um, is essentially separated into two categories: thinks in words, thinks in pictures, but they think the same. So, and the 60% that are neurodivergent are split into what, 60% of 9 billion people is 6 billion people, so at least 4 billion categories. Does that seem about right?
Man, well, so one of my special interests is biology. And in biology, diversity, along with friendliness and adaptability, are crucial to survival. And even in the same group of animals, being diverse, especially in a social animal group, is so helpful. That includes not only physical different adaptations, but I think neurological different adaptations. People have
Absolutely.
Yeah, people have said like, hey, what, like in caveman times, it's great to have people who are daylight people and people who are more awake at night, because the daylight
Hmm.
people can go and like gather fruits and get food and all this stuff. The night people are like, okay, I'm going to stay up and watch out for predators. I'm going to stay up and fiddle with this spear some more and invent stuff, you know?
Right.
So being neurologically diverse is so natural. I think it's the stigma that we really need to fight against in the beautiful chaos that is biodiversity in general.
One of my favorite jokes that my wife has come across in part of every good autism group rabbit hole that she's fallen into is fire was created by the neurodivergent person playing with rocks at the back of the cave, while all of the neurotypical people were out front talking about the weather and whose hair looked nice. Brit
Oh
has
my.
to go be a parent or sleep or something. So we should say goodbye to him. But if you've got a little bit more time, we can autism geek out, and I haven't gotten to my required final question yet.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
This was a
so
pleasure talking with
we'll
you.
say goodbye to
Please
Brit.
reach out if you feel like I can be of any help, or if you want another pair of eyes, reading through it. I'm happy to help out with anything.
Oh, thank you so very much. I thoroughly appreciate that. It was so good meeting all of you guys tonight. This has been
Pleasure to
absolutely
meet you too,
incredible.
Tess.
Thank you.
I'll see you, Ted. Thanks for
See you
listening to me,
soon,
and I
Brit.
appreciate it. Bye.
All right, now all the neurotypical people are out of the room, except that I think actually all of them are on the spectrum. They just don't know it.
We're
Actually, I think
indoctrinated
Edgar
by
knows it.
being friends with them. It's not, oh, the stereotypical vaccines make people autistic. No, it's being friends with us and realizing you're autistic is what makes them autistic.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's Tylenol now. Tylenol is
Oh,
why we're autistic, remember?
oh yeah, they switched that up.
I
Oh,
mean,
now
the
you just
vaccines are
talk.
still a thing, but it's also, I mean, go figure it. It all has to do with discrediting science and or making women deal with pain.
Oh well, you got to hit two birds with one stone: ableism and
Right.
sexism.
Right. Right.
Love, you gotta love when people, well, when very ignorant people who wish to stay ignorant try and come up with new excuses to stay ignorant and not listen to people. They're like, no,
Oh my
no,
God.
we want to know best. We don't want to listen to you, and just push us to the side.
There is nothing more exhausting um than the people who like, let me tell you how it is because I know things, and based on the things I know that aren't this, I think that this is true. This is what feels right to me. What you're saying doesn't feel right to me. I don't have time to read more stuff. No, stop sending me articles.
Oh, especially when they're the ones going, well, you need to do your own research. Okay, I did the research. Here's a bunch of
But
articles.
I'm actually half the time talking about the people that are smart most of the time and do
Oh,
agree with me on so many things, and then will be
yeah.
like, oh, that doesn't jive with my vibes. And it's like, yes. See, another one of my rabbit holes is the education system. You grew up when they were teaching a lot of Milton Friedman, even though Milton Friedman has never actually like worked when real data was applied. And for that matter, if you really want to dig into Milton Friedman, I might be like over data dumping on you. So like, tell me if I get to that point. Like his first essay that everybody loves, the one that's greed is good. Blah blah blah. It didn't actually say greed is good. What it said is like the only moral obligation a corporation has is to its shareholders. And in the first essay, and if there are societal goods that don't align with the profits of corporations, it is the government's responsibility to make laws to constrain them. The company's moral obligation is to maximize profits within the law. It wasn't until years later, when he'd gotten lots of funding from lots of rich people, that he started really hammering on deregulation.
Oh my God. Gotta love when money becomes a Muppet and starts talking.
Right, right. You know, similarly, what everybody remembers about John Maynard Keynes is the whole, oh, if you're in a depression, the government should spend more money, and when you're doing well, the government should spend less money. And everybody's like, ah, but it's not that simple, blah blah blah. And it's like, yes, it's not that simple, and that's not the main lesson of Keynes. The main lesson of Keynes is workers and consumers are the same people.
Yeah, they are the same. Golly gee willikers. I've never seen either of them in the same room at the same time. It's almost like they're the same person.
You
What?
know, and yet, even now in economics classes, in like every high school economics book I've ever seen, except the one written by Paul Krugman, which isn't used enough, it has involved talk of whether or not minimum wages will actually cut down on employment. Because if you have an artificially high wage, then they'll hire less people, blah blah blah. I'm like, no, I don't think it'll work that way, because they're gonna have more customers because people will be making more money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So whenever like me and because we live in our times, whenever me and my friends have a little extra income, we want to spoil each other
Yeah,
around holidays. We want to celebrate with each other. And when I'm, being poor and stuff, living in current day America, I am stingy because I want to survive and I want to save enough to pay my bills and get food and take care of medical stuff and everything. Golly gee, I don't have enough time or money to be spending and splurging and whatnot on
right.
luxuries. Excusez-moi. So it's these people up top, a lot of big corporations just forget how to be a person for a hot second.
Not just the corporations, the
No,
people
you're right.
I mean, the number of people who, I mean, I actually had this conversation with somebody recently when they were essentially arguing that it was impossible to have better union protections. It was impossible to have higher taxes on rich people and corporations. It was impossible to have a better social welfare net, social safety net, etc. And I'm sitting there going, you understand that you were alive and benefited from a country that had all of those things. The social welfare net didn't start getting shredded until Reagan, and wasn't really shredded until Clinton. The the top the top
Yeah.
individual tax rate in 1968 was 93%.
Oh my God, it's always the rose
and,
tinted
and that's
glasses.
and that's beyond that's before you go, okay, what's so special about America that we can't do what Canada and most of Europe does?
I know, right?
Mexico has better healthcare outcomes than we do.
Real. Oh. Well, now I'm even more jealous because they've got like better food and like more eclectic culture, and now they have
Oh,
better
if
health
we
care.
reach the point where they open up their borders for American refugees, I know people, I might move.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you one
I
bit.
mean, the downside of Mexico right now is they have Texas as a neighbor.
Oh, That's the third
And
time this week I've heard Texas being dumped on, and
well,
two people that coming from Texas have told me how much not a favorable state.
you know what the problem with having Texas as a neighbor, though, if you're Mexico,
Oh no.
is there's another thing that Mexico would be a shining example of if it weren't for having Texas as a neighbor.
Uh-oh, what is it?
They have a constitutional right to bear arms, but for the most part, have also done very well with gun control. There's only one place to legally buy guns in Mexico. There are specific things that you have to go through to get it. Here's the problem. You know where the easiest place in the world to buy a gun is?
Texas and Walmart?
Texas.
Oh no.
You know what the single biggest illegally smuggled thing across our southern border is? It's not drugs coming north.
I'm guessing it's the guns.
It's guns going south. In other words, the reason that the cartels are able to terrorize Mexican citizens and send drugs north is because we have weapons manufacturers that like it to be easy to get the guns down south.
Well, of course, we got to
Heaven
spread our
forbid
joy
we should
everywhere.
actually take care of the things that we can take care of to solve a problem. Let's talk about bombing Mexico rather than talking about preventing guns from getting across our border into
I will be
Mexico.
right back. I just got to charge my phone real quick.
No problem.
It's got to get the
We'll
cord
pause
on.
for a second.
Excellent. Well, it would have been
And we're
so
back.
excellent. Okay. Thank you for dealing with the technical difficulties on my end, but I agree that America does have I'm just so exhausted from it.
No, I am too. We don't need to talk about that. I was already ready to change the subject. I
Oh
follow
yeah,
that
fair enough,
route
fair enough.
too. It's one of my hyperfixations, like I said, particularly because, and I was really struck by your talking about autistic people having in common focusing on the trees and sometimes having trouble seeing the forest, because I always feel like I'm a 10,000 foot person. But what I realized as I was really trying to think about it is, no, the problem is I I have lots of trees that I'm really fixated on,
Oh
so
my God. Yeah.
I can go up and connect them.
Yes, yes.
So I find myself at 10,000 feet because you say A and I think Z, M, B, and D and pull them all together and take us to K.
Because you can, yeah, you can get the interconnections going. Your brain can make a big root system like
Right,
mushrooms. Like they have a big
right.
root system. They look individual, but they're just so interconnected. That metaphor actually came, I believe it came from a Temple Grandin book I had read
I
as for
believe
the
it. I need to read her stuff. I haven't yet.
okay, so a lot of it is really cool because she's one of the first autistic people to write books and bring that
Which is
perspective.
why I know who she is.
And some of it's a little bit outdated, because of the times and people are
Well, and it's also
progressing
through
more.
her own lens.
Yes, yes, it is. But it is a valuable read because most other
Right.
books I was looking at, immediately I look at the cover or crack open and they say autism is a disease, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm putting that down.
The book that actually wound up blowing my mind was a book called Neurotribes.
Ooh.
Written by, and it actually, like, it disturbed the hell out of me when I realized that it's not a new book. It's like 10 or 15 years old. The author's actually dead. Which made me sad because I found
Oh
it and I'm
no.
like, I have a podcast. I want to track this guy down and talk to him. Because that's now what I think about. I mean, I have a comics podcast, but I can find a way to make it about comics. You're
Oh
my
yeah.
second Montana guest.
Oh my God. Really?
You may have voted for the other one.
Ooh, Jonathan, was he a senator?
No, he ran for governor.
Oh,
He's currently
oh,
running for
John Tester. Was it John Tester?
no, John Tester's a senator. I would have loved to have John Tester. Ryan Bussey.
Oh, okay.
He was
Hmm.
just the Democratic candidate for governor. He lost,
Oh.
unfortunately, but not suspect. But he's now running for, I think, the House seat against Ryan Zinke. So
Oh, good.
hopefully you'll
Yeah,
vote
yeah,
for him
yeah, yeah.
again. But he
Listen,
also
I'm
wrote
an
a
ind
book called he also wrote a book called Gunfight because he used to be a gun executive and then started seeing the writing on the wall about how, okay, this isn't about sportsmen anymore. This isn't
hmm
even really about protection anymore. This is
Mm-mm.
about some really scary shit. So he left the industry and he was the issues director for Giffords International or Giffords Gabby Giffords group, the like Arizona representative that was shot during a
Oh.
started a gun control group, and then he ran for governor, and now he's running for. But Steve Silberman is the one that wrote Neurotribes: The Legacy of Autism and the Future of Neurodiversity.
Oh.
Um, and what he is he's actually like a legit journalist. So he came at it from a journalism's perspective.
Mm.
Um, so like he first takes us through the history and like identifies some people that you obviously can't say were autistic, but I mean,
Regulation,
just because the
regulation.
word didn't exist yet.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Should we tell
and
him?
then he has chapters on both Asperger and the other guy, whose name I can't remember, and really like emphasizes both the good and bad of both of them because they
Yeah,
both
no.
have some real issues and some real strengths.
Yeah.
Um, And probably the biggest issue between both of them is that they both wanted their definition to be right, so they didn't work together.
Oh,
They
that's a
knew of each
shame.
other. They knew of each other and like pretended that they didn't.
Such a mean girl's
Essentially.
attitude. My God,
Right.
these two
Right.
grown ass men are sitting
Total
across from each
total
other.
white male.
Oh yeah, no, they're
um
much more mean girl than mean girls. Oh,
oh
you're
yeah. Oh
defining
God,
autism as
yes.
this. You can't sit with us.
Right. Right. But so anyway, and it goes through parent movements and it goes through things that worked well and things, and it's really honest about them and that sort of thing. But then chapter 11 hits, and I remember that it's chapter 11. Like I made so many people read just chapter 11 because chapter 11, I don't know if it's where Temple Grandin was introduced, but it's certainly where she made her biggest appearance. And there were a bunch of other people that made appearances that I don't remember all the names of because I'm not good at that.
Oh
Remembering
yeah, me neither.
individual facts is not my thing. Big pictures, I'm really good at remembering. Individual facts, that's what the internet's for. Um, I was so happy when it was invented because I didn't have it when I was a kid. So I had to carry around lots of books and or notes of things that I thought were important. Um, but that's an aside. Chapter 11 is when the autistic people started getting involved. Chapter 11 is the autistic people advocating for autistic people. Chapter 11 is the autistic people looking at the way blind people had advocated for themselves and saying, oh, that's what we need to do.
Hell yeah.
Um, Chapter 11 is just filled with so much wisdom and pain and whatever, I mean, the part that hit me the hardest was, and this is where I should just, I should make certain I quote it properly, but thankfully I highlighted the hell out of my Kindle version. Um,
Gotta love
but
the
that,
invention of the highlighter.
yeah, but there was a period, um, where they taught autistic parents, and I think you kind of touched on this a little bit with the doctor talking to your parents. They would teach autistic parents that you had to like mourn your child. You know,
Yes.
you needed to mourn the child that you thought you would have. Um, and like, I mean, on one level, trying to be empathetic, I can get where the psychologist or whatever would be coming from, where they're trying to get you to let go of some sort of expectation so that you can be present with your kid. Um, and like the guy who I'm about to quote, um, actually for this conference that he went to, he wound up um taking a younger autistic kid with him. You know, the parents had said, "Hey, can you?" So it was like the first time that he'd been responsible for somebody. So it had him rethink. He's like, "Okay, I kind of understand where they're coming from." So he like even wound up toning down his language on this part because of that. Um, but oh, where is it? Okay, that's right. Her first book was as a recovered autistic individual. I forgot that.
Oh my God.
Well, because she could write a book now.
Oh,
I
because
mean,
she was hurt.
well,
Oh.
but it came out in 1986. Remember, in
Yeah.
1986, if you could talk, you weren't autistic.
Oh,
It
that's
wasn't until
right. Well,
1992 that you could be autistic and talk.
well, see, yeah, that was before my time. See, yeah, no, I was born in 91, so I
Right.
that was before that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's where all of this becomes so complicated, particularly for those of us. I mean, I feel let me rephrase. As far as autism goes, if the
Mhm.
rest of the nation survives the next decade, I feel really good about the world that my autistic grandchildren will have.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I know. I'm just so happy. I know that the pandemic had created so many different changes, good and bad. One of the good ones being we're talking about autism more. It's
Yeah.
less stigmatizing. It's on the path of being less stigmatized. And we're seeing each other and accepting each other. And we are talking about it more and more. And I feel like it's amazing coming out of that. So, and the things that we were shamed about, it becoming less shameful. Like, oh no, I do that too. Like, I have
Right.
hyperfixations. I've got special interests. I can set boundaries to say, hey, stop. I'm feeling overstimulated and burnt out. We can do these
I'm
things.
getting better at that, though it involves more days off from work than I'd like. I'm still trying to find the way to balance that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't at work today because I think what I told Edgar when I was texting him earlier today, or maybe I told my wife, it was one of the two. It's like, yeah, I stayed home autistic with a cold. And they're like, so were you home because you were autistic or you home because you had a cold? And I said, yes. And I'm pretty certain if I hadn't had a cold, I wouldn't have been home today. And I'm pretty certain that if I'd had a cold but wasn't autistic, I wouldn't have been home today. But you put the two together,
They
and the
tag
world was
team.
too much.
Oh no. Oh my God, I know. Well, so getting back to mourning the child that you could have had. So with that conversation, honestly, it should have been phrased as letting go of your expectations of normal. And I really
Right.
wanted to put that in the book because, and this I didn't add in, but when I was first diagnosed, it was before so my parents didn't know what was going on. And they ran through tests like, is she deaf? Is something happening? The doctors did some scans. At first, they thought it was a brain tumor. And my
Yeah.
parents were absolutely heartbroken. And they're like, please test again. And they did. And the doctor said, oh, I'm so sorry, Lisa and Mike. It's worse. Your child is autistic. And thank God my parents were like, oh my God, thank you. Oh, let's do this. Let's effing do this. Like, we're so glad that she doesn't have a brain tumor. So it was a struggle back then. And again, with each era, there are going to be struggles and accommodations made. Heck, my mom invented DoorDash before DoorDash was a thing because she couldn't take me to the grocery store. She had to order
Yeah.
food to get taken to the apartment. But,
Yeah.
but more and more people are finally figuring out we need to let go of what is considered normal because it's harming us. The
Well,
harmful
that's why. Go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
because the constraints of what is considered the toxic parts of normality, we see the effects of that harm on all of us.
Um, I found it. Here it is. And it was I think Jim Sinclair was the set who said it. He said, "This is what we hear when you mourn over our existence. This is what we hear when you pray for a cure. This is what we know when you tell us of your fondest hopes and dreams for us, that your greatest wish is that one day we will cease to be, and strangers you can love will move in behind our faces."
That is deep.
And again, this is like I think the first autism conference held by autistic people. Um, in a talk called "Don't Mourn for Us" to the Autism Society in Canada in I want to say 1990 something, but I don't have it immediately in front of me. Well, I mean, have it immediately in front of me. I'm not seeing the citation on my pages of highlights.
You know it's a good book when the highlights are pretty much entire pages.
Well, and when you have to start using different colors to mean different things.
That is a stellar book right there. That's a
You
reading rainbow,
know,
literally.
Neurotribe, Steve Silverman. I can't recommend it to enough people.
Okay, that's on my reading list. That's on my to-do list
I mean,
right there.
that was the one that like wound up waking me up to the fact that, I mean, I hadn't been working in autism for long before I went, oh, this explains a lot. I'm autistic. Um, Everything we've ever had work in therapy is the stuff that I'm teaching or using to teach kids now. Or, I build scripts. God,
Oh
I
my
script
God.
everything.
Oh my God.
Um,
Young fledglings, let us do better by you than what they did for me.
right. Well, and at least I didn't go through official, what is it? Behavioral, what is it? I always forget the acronym.
Um,
There's some sort of behavioral therapy. Is it DBT? No, not DBT. Something like that lots of autistic people used to get that you
oh
you
my
don't
God,
name, but
yeah.
you have it in the book with
Yes.
rewards and punishments for behaving properly.
Oh my God, yeah. When I heard about that,
And
I was
all you
absolutely
hear is horror
appalled.
stories from people who went through that.
Yes.
Um, for that matter, I mean, I wound up digging deep into why so many people with autism don't like Autism Speaks, because I know so many people involved with Autism Speaks and essentially it's because they haven't explicitly like spoken out against this type of therapy. But then the other thing is this type of therapy has kept its name, but also changed dramatically since these people who were traumatized by it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, as medicine should,
Yeah.
it evolved.
Yeah. They're not using
Maybe it should
leeches
have also
anymore.
rebranded.
Yeah. Well, and also Autism Speaks had a terrible, terrible commercial about the program
Yeah,
and saying, I am autism. I will
right,
drain your funds. I will ruin your marriages. I will
right,
kick
right,
your
right, right,
kids downstairs and set your house on fire, blah, blah, blah.
right.
It was a horrible,
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wasn't trying to say that they're at all. This is not my endorsement of Autism Speaks. It was only my layers upon layers upon layers because it's new. I mean, even like, okay, sure, it's been around since the 40s. Like in terms of medicine, how new is that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't have the word PTSD in the 40s, but PTSD came directly from shell shock that we started diagnosing in the Civil War. So PTSD is way older than autism.
As far as medically wise, yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, from a
well,
medical standpoint, from a medical or psychological standpoint, how many things are truly newer than autism? And really, from a psychological standpoint, because it's a different kind of research. I mean, yeah, AIDS is different, newer than autism, but like, you've gone down biology, chemical research versus behavioral research is massively different.
yes, it is. It is. It's comparing apples to oranges. I mean, they're both fruit, but they're different kinds of fruit,
Right.
and they're coming
I mean,
from, yeah,
I mean,
different evolution.
I had somebody talking to me about how, oh, no, all of the, all of the, and I love how it's always, well, if it works for you, that's great. But all of the psychological pharmaceutical company or industry is a complete and utter hoax. You know, none of those work in more than 3% over the placebo. And I'm sitting there going, do you understand that in things that aren't measurable, in things that are measured only by patient response, 3% over placebo is actually really high.
Love when people go on a rant and they haven't done as much research. They just really want to make a point because this thing that does not work for them, they're like, oh, well, it's not going to work for anyone else. But that
They,
helps
they
so
want the
many.
thing that well, and again, I've discovered this just a different way that my brain is wired. I always want to ask the next question. I always want to look for the next answer. I don't have a part of me that says, oh, that's not worth me knowing. Everything's worth me knowing.
And that's
Everything's
what's
worth me
scary to a
knowing.
lot of folks. Yeah, that's
And I'm
what's scary
also
to a
willing
lot
to
of.
say I don't know.
Yes,
But
yeah,
but
no,
what
I'm
becomes really
definitely.
scary is when I'll say, neither do you.
Yeah. I love when, well, I guess there's a couple different ways. A lot of people who are neurodivergent, it's like, oh, well, you're so blunt and you're so rude. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's like, is it rude to say I don't know and neither do you? Or do you not like being proven wrong? Like what is the
That's part of it.
difference?
I actually had a great conversation at C2E2 with a couple of Mad Cave like sales executives one year. We were just talking and like I got into one of my babble modes and I just stopped and I said, "Hey, I'm autistic. So like if I'm overwhelming, if I'm crossing boundaries, if I'm whatever, please tell me, and also I'm tired, so I've got no control over my intonation or my volume or whatever. Like, please just everything I say is what I mean, and everything, if it doesn't seem right, just ask questions." And they're both like, why don't people always communicate like that? I'm like, I don't know. That's on you guys.
Oh
I would
my
love it if
God.
people communicated like that.
Oh, if only, sir. God, that's a dream. That just, if someone just said that in my life, that would have been amazing. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's like, yeah, no, wouldn't it be amazing if like the way we communicated was we used the best words we could come up with to say exactly what we mean, rather than assuming that you were going to figure it out from the things that we left unsaid or the facial expressions that we made or the tone that we used or whatever other thing, and that if you heard it and you either didn't fully understand it or you said,
Mhm.
it seems like you're saying this, but that doesn't feel like a thing that you would normally say, rather than immediately getting angry or responding negatively, you said, this is what I'm hearing. Is it what you mean?
Yeah. Oh my God. That's some pain right there. That's revisiting some pain right there of
This is one of the reasons why I think the autistic people are like not the broken ones. Another
it's
thing I'm going to see if I can find this. Have you ever seen the I think it's only available through the Wayback Machine now, but the
Oh,
institution or from the early days of the internet, because of course autistic people figured out the internet first. Um, and they created the DSM-4, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Normal Disorders. And
oh, I've never
the
heard it, but I do
the
love that joke if you
the
diagnose a neurotypical person. I love that set of jokes.
the Institute for the Study of the Neurologically Typical.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it meets qualification of at least two of the following criteria. A, egocentrism, at least one of the following. One, egocentric perspective, e.g., fails to realize that others may have a different perspective, needs, nature, or experiences from his or herself. Two, egomania, e.g., acts or talks as though better or more important than peers or others. Three, selfishness, either or both of the following. A, market greed or covetousness. B, domineering or bossy attitude.
Oh my
B,
God.
B, lack of originality. At least one of the following. One, rigidly follows traditional or social rituals. Two, is often faddish, following the latest fads, fashions, or crazes invented or set by others. Three, often demonstrates a herd mentality, e.g., thoughtlessly follows a social reference group or local group of friends, often gives into peer pressure. C, lack of sympathy. One or both of the following. One, cruel or callous toward the feeling of others, e.g., engages in teasing or ridiculing others, play potentially harmful practical jokes on unsuspecting victims who are unlikely to be amused. Or two, often manipulative, e.g., uses others as tools toward own goals, treats others as objects which may be acquired for own satisfaction, uses dishonesty as a convenient way to achieve goals.
Oh my
And then,
gosh.
then it
Well,
moves on to have a description, associated features, and differential diagnosis. Prevalence. The exact prevalence of the incidents are not known. However, normal personality appears to be frighteningly common, and its incidence is increasing, or may be increasing. But my favorite is the prognosis. Normal personality is most often a lifelong condition. Rarely is there any significant improvement in symptoms. It has been suggested that the presence of neurotypicality makes the prognosis worse, though
oh
this has
no.
not been substantiated. Despite the severe social dependencies and possible cognitive impairments associated with normal personality, such people are often relatively high functioning. Many of them even become successful professionals, with politicians being an especially common in this population. However, the egocentrism, poor insight, and narrow standards of acceptability may make the person with normal personality dangerous to others in the community, being particularly threatening to those who are not themselves normal.
Oh my God. I mean, oh geez. That is definitely like the originality of the joke right there. Because I
Yep.
mean, yeah, I feel like some of those descriptors people now use for narcissistic tendencies
Yep.
or other type of stuff right now. It just reminds me of that. But I do like joking with friends. If someone were diagnosed with neurotypicalness, the doctor would lean in and say, I am so sorry. Your child is neurotypical. They'll never have a special interest. They'll always want eye contact. Harold, no eye contact. I can't believe
Right.
it. There's something missing there. They, the this poor child will have to go through life and based off of others, and it's just I'm so terribly sorry. Like the dramaticism of getting diagnosed with anything other than neurotypical
Right.
is laughable, and to just sort of flip that script and say, how does that feel to you when someone looks at
Right.
you and goes,
Right.
oh, and
No.
especially with the eye contact, sometimes I have to go like, okay, with that amount of eye contact, where do you need
I've
validation
actually
from
gotten
me?
in so much more trouble because of my masking eye contact than I ever
Oh
do.
my God.
Why is that person staring at me? I thought I was supposed to be looking at people when I talk to them, or when I
Yeah.
was thinking about talking to them, or like there are times where you're supposed to look at people and times when you're not supposed to look at people. What the fuck?
gave this to me. What the hell? Yeah, no, oh my God. Yeah. And it even varies through culture because when I was in
Yeah.
high school, I told a therapist, listen, I'm not the best at eye contact. And she said, you know what? In some Native American cultures and in certain tribes, it's disrespectful to look at people straight in the eyeballs and stuff. And it's like, wow, wouldn't that be nice if that was culturally acceptable, not
Well,
have
I
to be
mean,
looked at?
in certain cultures or Native American tribes, the people who were different were assumed to be better.
Well, so I talked about this in the book. Like,
Yeah.
autism may have been around for way longer, just under different
Oh,
names. Like,
definitely
John.
has. There is nothing about autism that seems like it's something that would just appear.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it's been, and that's the
You
same
know, I mean,
for.
it's one thing with the disease where again, like a bacteria or a virus can mutate to become something,
Mhm,
right? So I mean, I brought up AIDS earlier. AIDS is something that has come up in our lifetime. You know,
mhm.
there's not really, or my lifetime. You're 12 years younger than me, um, or 11 years younger than me. Yeah, don't make myself too old. I turned 46 this year.
Age
um,
is relative. My 90 something year old grandma had, or great grandma actually had a red Porsche, and she was
oh
just like
yeah,
living her best life until
absolutely,
100 and a half. So age is relative.
absolutely, it is. But again, like the pandemic was kind of a new strain, except that it wasn't. One of the reasons we were able to have a vaccine so fast was that we were actually already working on it because we'd already had a coronavirus, just not that coronavirus. So being able to pivot a little to,
Mhm.
you know, like every year's flu is not the same as the one before. Those are new things. Um, there have been blind people forever.
Yeah.
There have been deaf people forever. There have been left-handed people forever. So there have been autistic people forever.
Hmm. Yeah.
They just had
Yeah.
different names for them.
And that's the same with I mean, that's the same
And
culture.
or they had much shorter lifespans for myriad reasons.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Though
That's the same.
honestly, I would be willing to bet that one of the reasons why there's such a prevalence of neurodiversity is that there are definitely some societies where being neurodiverse, like hunter-gatherer times, I bet you live way better neurodiverse. When you can think of the new thing to get away from the saber-toothed tiger.
The diversity of brains really helps a team, just like looking at it's kind of like, so I like to use the metaphor of a 7-Eleven with security cameras. If you have all these same security camera pointing at one spot, but your candy bars are still getting stolen, that doesn't work. If you add in a night vision camera in a different part of the store, you'll be able to catch the candy thief way quicker.
Right, right,
You just need
right.
different kinds of cameras in different kinds of spots, and that's the same with brains.
I mean, like, yeah, but like you're not allowed to say that out loud right now because that's what did the Supreme Court say about that
Oh no.
when they were getting rid of when they were getting rid of uh, uh affirmative action.
You can't think differently, Janet. That's taboo. What?
No, no, oh no, that what it was is they saw no they felt that there was no credible proof of extra value to diversity. That's what they said. I knew I'd remember it. No credible evidence that it was in the best interest of all students to have diversity.
Wow, that sounds like something a clone would say.
Sounds like something Brett Kavanaugh would say.
That just
Oh
is
wait, It
despicable.
might
That
have been
is,
Clarence Thomas.
oh my
Could have
God,
been Sam Alito.
that is just
Can you
so
tell that the Supreme Court is another of my hyperfixations?
Tell me you're autistic without telling me you're autistic. Okay. When a couple years ago I got to watch the pilot episode of Star Trek, and this is like the original Star Trek. This was
Okay.
before Kirk
Yeah, I've
and
seen it.
Spock. You've seen it. So, okay. Me coming in and watching this, I was so scared because most of the cast were the same looking white guy, and
Uh-huh.
there were only two women. And I was genuinely feeling like, oh, this is science fiction body horror of like the same dude everywhere, the same milk white toast guy. And I could not tell any of them apart. This was genuinely kind of terrifying for me. So I'm so glad that the Star Trek after that was like, no, let's add in some more genders and more
That actually
people doing.
sounds like the second pilot because they had
Oh,
two pilots.
oh, they did.
And I mean, first of all, do you know who bankrolled Star Trek?
Lucy Liu, baby. Or no, wait, Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy.
I love Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy did.
Yeah, of course he
And
did.
if I recall correctly, there was a decent amount of diversity in the first pilot, and the network insisted that it wouldn't work.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
But
Oh
then,
my
but then
God.
they did the second pilot that was even less diverse, and it bombed massively,
Oh, I wonder why. Was it the
which is
horror
what
of the
led to
clone army that came in?
right, which is what led to, and they still had to fight tooth and nail to get O'Hara and George Takei and but apparently they were more willing to have a black woman than a black man. But once they had a black woman, they couldn't have other women, at least not right away.
Oh my God. Oh wow. They're
See,
just so
this is a new hyperfixation of mine, and I haven't gone deep on the Star Trek hyperfixation. It's more of how to put this, because among other things, my hyperfixations have gotten weirder as I get older because I don't give up many of them, which means that I pay attention to more things and don't fall as far down as many rabbit holes. Like my rabbit holes are for a sitting period rather than a month. Used to be rabbit holes
Mm.
were like a month long, and now if I have to stop to go to sleep or go to work or whatnot, I may or may not go back to that rabbit hole rather than absolutely positively going back to that rabbit hole. Um,
Oh, I love that. I love hearing how people talk about their special interests and hyperfixations, how they interact with them, and how it plays into their lives too. Because I learned so much from my neurodiverse friends info dumping to me and being like,
mhm.
wow, I didn't know this much about aspect. I didn't know this much about bugs. I didn't know this much about Ace Attorney video game. Like, I did not know any of this stuff. I love that my friends can get, because they're so passionate about it. And it's like, I'm learning so much more from you than so
I,
many other professors with a
I
deadpan tone that are doing this just because they're getting paid.
I once had a kid spend half an hour giving me way more details than I remember, but he was fascinating in giving them. So I think he was shocked that I didn't shut him down. Um, on the different types of town emergency sirens, the ones that they like
Really?
test every Tuesday. And I
What?
I didn't even know that there were different types. And he had all these YouTube videos of different ones that he'd watch, and he had all this terminology. I have a kid right now that like his big hyperfixation is tollways. He can tell you everything about every traffic signal, every
That is
and
stellar.
they're
Oh my
both also brilliant
God.
kids. Like they do good at other stuff, but it's like, okay, we're done with math. I'm gonna go back to tollways now.
Yeah. Because tollways are cool, dude. I don't know what your problem is.
Right.
You flipping nerd.
And in that sense, I feel really lucky that my hyperfixations were things like baseball and
Mm.
music, because then it only became problematic for me when I didn't know when to stop talking
Oh,
rather than just what I was talking about.
oh, I was not lucky in that regard. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I loved, it was really hard to find people to talk to them about because, I live in Montana and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to talk about anime or animation with a lot of folks. It was hard to figure out because I also love mythology and storytelling. Storytelling is a
Right.
huge special interest of mine. And so it was tough to find folks to talk to that about until I found better peers at school.
Right.
And one way I would connect with folks is asking what their favorite cartoons were. And I distinctly remember on my mother's side. So my nan's favorite cartoon growing up was um, Roadrunner and Coyote. My grandfather's
Yep.
was Yosemite Sam. I remember my dad's favorite cartoon growing up was Johnny Quest. My mom's was The Jetsons. My sister's was Johnny Quest New Adventures. And my first big story special interest, other than Where the Wild Things Are in Aladdin, was Scooby Doo. That was one of my
Uh,
first. That was a deep dive. That was like, I gotta know about everything about this because I love it so much, which explains a lot of my tastes nowadays. Now that I think about it.
see, I have a disdain for Scooby-Doo, but my wife also likes to point out that half of the songs that I randomly sing with whatever words come to my head are the tune of Scooby-Doo, so I don't know what my Scooby-Doo thing is.
You know what? That's okay. That's
And
another thing too.
I haven't been willing to go revisit, because like when I think of watching Scooby-Doo, I have like a physical reaction of no, I don't want to.
Yeah,
But
no,
again,
that's
it's somehow in my psyche enough that like do 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 is like a common. So it's like, what is it that is why I think I don't like Scooby-Doo, particularly because so many people and like I'm gonna wind up. I know how it's gonna work already, because like for a long time I wasn't into Star Trek at all. When I was young, you were supposed to be Star Wars or Star Trek, and I was hardcore Star Wars. So like, fuck Star Trek. My friend Chris was one of the rare people that was actually into both of them.
hmm
I didn't know him when I was a kid, so he wasn't like we met much more recently.
hmm
Um, so when he got the gig writing Star Trek Defiant, the comic book, he was over the fucking moon. Um, like super, super excited text from him going, "I'm writing Star Trek." And I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
fuck, I need to learn about Star Trek now. But as it turns out, when I started learning about Star Trek, I wound up liking Star Trek quite a bit. So like this is what I imagine. At some point, somebody I love is going to write a Scooby-Doo comic. And I'm gonna go, okay. Or I'll get to know Mark Damatis, because he and Keith Giffen already did the Scooby Apocalypse that everybody says is great, and I haven't brought myself to read yet.
That one out
That
there,
sort of
yeah.
thing.
Well, I
Um,
think also like the history of Scooby Doo is interesting because the character designs were done by Iwao Takamoto, who was a second generation American Japanese person
okay,
who
so
learned how
you
to draw.
already have me more interested than I've already been.
He learned how to draw from a person from Vietnam in an internment camp at one point.
Okay.
And so it's not just, and also the name Scooby Doo came from a Frank Sinatra song, "Strangers in the Night," when he sang Scooby Dooby Doo. Like it
All
is,
right. All
and
right.
also, and the design
You're
of
hooking
Scooby.
me.
Oh my God. And the design of Scooby Doo, on purpose, they talked to a Great Dane breeder and they asked, okay, what are the defining features that make a good Great Dane? And they did the opposite. When designing Scooby Doo,
So he's a neurotypical Great Dane,
he's a
or a
neurodiverse.
neuroatypical. Yeah, a
He's an atypical
neuroatypical.
Great Dane. Yeah,
Oh,
he is completely atypical. He is
oh,
He is a breeder's worst nightmare of a Great Dane. Like anything that is the opposite of a show dog Great Dane, that is Scooby Doo. It's so I totally that's completely understandable that there's some things about a property that are like that's not for me. Like I'm not the biggest fan of My Little Pony, but when I hear folks who love the show that are like, yeah, here's some behind the
Yeah, I
scenes
actually
about
have
this.
a lot of male autistic students who love.
Yeah,
And I haven't
yeah.
fallen down the rabbit hole yet, but I have, and we've had guests on this show, at least four different My Little Pony. We've done it. I mean, Alex DeCampi wrote My Little Pony. Tony Fleeks did My Little Pony.
Yeah.
I can't even remember all the other people that I've had that have done My Little Pony stuff. So it's like, and also it was Tony Fleeks that told me, like, uh, I'm sorry, I feel really bad. Ted Anderson, who's part of the Milestone Book Club, so he's been on the show like 40 times, wrote My Little Pony. Um,
See? Yeah. And like I tried getting into the series. It wasn't my cup of tea, but I
right.
love learning about it from people who love it. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, I need to revisit this at one point because these
Yeah.
people are giving me the Costco samples of some of the good stuff
Right.
that
Right.
are
Well, and what Tony Fleeks told us that just like really sunk in with me. He's like, what I'll absolutely tell you is that pony cons are the best to be a guest and table at. They treat you like fucking royalty. They all know you. They all actually know your work. They're not just trying to get you to sign something so they can slab it and sell it. And they don't go, oh, not a big star and keep walking. And
oh,
they
that's
keep they ask you, what's your favorite beverage? And they bring you a case, not one.
oh my God, that's so sweet. It reminds me of the furry community. I again, I'm not a part of the community. There are great artists from that community, and a lot of people that I've met from that community are so kind and so creative. And their costumes are like Jim Henson Muppet level stuff. Like
Oh
I
yeah. No, I know too. And this is anytime that community comes up, I need to state something for the record for all of the people who only watch Fox News. I have known many, 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 many furries. Of the furries I know, most of them prefer cats. First of all, they do not identify as cats except when they're doing furry things. It tends not to be I am a cat all the time.
no,
It's more of a fetish fandom type thing. And second, I have never ever met a furry cat that had any interest in using a litter box.
God, that rumor was atrocious. Oh my
Well, particularly
God.
given the number of people who didn't treat it as rumor and
That
also didn't use basic logic. It was always everybody who ever talked about it. Oh, I have a friend who goes here and they said that this happens. Nobody had ever actually seen it. But even when they were talking about it on TV, you know what they never had? A
brains?
picture. A picture.
Oh,
And are you telling me that a high school could have a litter box in the bathroom and nobody's going to take a picture of it in this day and age? Are you fucking crazy?
yes, yes, they are. I think you hit it on the head. They are actually crazy because they rather rumors than actual
No, I
facts.
think that's being mean to crazy people.
Oh, that's true. Okay, I'm sorry. These
There's some
people.
cool crazy people out there. They're just
That's
dumb. They're neurodifficult and dumb.
you know what? I do love that term. I do love that
My
term.
my my wife gave it to me. Like I said, my wife now follows like one of my wife's things is like when she and this is one of the reasons she's probably somewhere on the spectrum herself too. When she starts caring about something, not only does she do as much research as she can, but she'll join like every face group book group that she can find that seems to like be appropriate. She'll join, follow every Instagram person she can find that seems to be. So this was like some autism mom that she follows on Instagram
Oh God.
put up my I was driving my son to school this morning, and he asked me why neurodifficult people blank, and I don't even remember what he asked because that was just so perfect that that's what I'm using now.
Yeah. No, I think I think that's a great differentiation
So it came
between
from some
neurotypical.
6-year-old, some
Yeah.
6-year-old autistic kid,
See,
neurotypical.
he's got it. He gets it.
Actually, when we were talking about swear words earlier, one of my coworkers, I guess her daughter, I think would be like 11 now, but she was telling me about when she was 9, she made her own curse word dictionary.
Ooh. Ooh.
But the thing is, she didn't actually know what they meant. So it was like fuck, something you say when you're angry.
He knows the context, though. She may not have known what the actual word meant, but she got the context
No,
down.
no, no. That's what it was. It was her entire contextual dictionary of all the swear words.
You know what? I think that's a very good book.
It,
You
it
know
is. It's
what?
amazing. It's amazing.
Yes. And I think that's very important information to have. I may not know the
And
Latin
that's why
terminology.
my coworker who is speech path and works with a lot of autistic kids, like rather than being the parent that's like, oh no, we don't do that, is like, hell yes, let me put it on the refrigerator.
Because it's a work of art, and she knows it's a work of art. Oh my
But she's
God.
also I mean that's a kid that wound up by careful deliberation and choice in a special school that she's so happy to be in because it controls for the things that are hard. I mean, and her big thing is she had like 2 really good friends, and she's like, well, will I get to, and her mom's like, well, one of them lives right next door, so yes, and the other one will make certain that you still get to play with each other. And it immediately became, then I want to try it. And like she'd been there a week before it was like, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh.
Because now
Yes,
I
she's
can learn. I mean, because that's one of the special ed balancing acts is like inclusion is great, and inclusion is actually really great for the neurodifficult kids because they're going to have to be around autistic people all their lives, and they need
yeah.
to start learning how to be better for them.
Yeah.
But it can also be really, really hard. It becomes
It's
I mean, becomes a question of what's the important thing for them to be learning, which
yes.
actually that was this is one of 2 more things I'm going to do on the book, and then we need to get to like closing questions because I do need to work at some point in the morning.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but I loved the part where you talked about your parents and not caring as much about the math and science as the building relationships and finding your people and whatnot. And specifically, the point that you pointed out that like math's great, but if you can't relate to people, it won't get you a job.
That's another one
Which
of
isn't
the, yeah.
always true. Sometimes if you're ridiculously good,
Hmm.
I mean, I've known people who don't know they're autistic who manage to get pretty good jobs because they're really good at things that you don't actually need social skills for, and they manage. There is something that should be pointed out here. They're all white males from at least moderately affluent to very affluent families. So they had people with connections to go, hey, trust me, my kid's good at this. Check
Yeah,
them
yeah.
out. But so like it's for all of the parents that want to push the calculus for the kid that's good at calculus, there are possibilities, but you're going to have to do more work for them.
Yes, yes.
Maybe.
It's
And
that
you know
balance.
what? If they're that good at calculus, they can fail calculus in high school and they'll still catch up and show the world that they're good at calculus. I
That's
mean, how many of our tech bros dropped out of college?
you know what I don't
Way too
really
many of
know.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the answer is way too many of them.
Ah,
A-
I
a-
gotcha.
and only half of them had as much parental support to get started as like as much as the tech bros have become horrible, horrible, horrible people, and the newest generation of them tends to be truly horrible people that also are fail sons. Like if you go back to your
Mm.
original Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, that sort of thing, not only did they all, most of them drop out of college because it stopped being useful to them, and they
Hmm.
weren't particularly good at college, they were good at building computers, but less of them had as much parental support. And like this is where Warren Buffett always says, yeah, no, I made most of my fortune. My parents weren't rich, but I was trading stocks in high school, and that's not something that most people can do. My parents had
Yeah.
enough money to give me money to trade stocks in high school.
Yeah. Well, no, it's really a balancing act as far as like the knowledge goes, because it's everyone's got gaps in their knowledge, and
Mhm,
it is some things our brains come in and take easier. And for
mhm,
some neurotypical folks, it's a lot of social stuff. And
mhm,
for a lot of neurodiverse people, it could be some social stuff, but it could be different topics. It could be special
mhm.
interests. It can be um, things that can help us later on with the job market or not.
Right.
But it's so good to have a good balance. And I feel like I was really lucky in the draw of my parents realizing that the social skills are going to help me adapt to different spaces that are not going to always accommodate for my needs, versus having a high level math skill, which again, my brain is not skilled at math as much as I would like it to be. So that would have been a very difficult path for me personally.
I'm pretty certain that if we spent time together, I'd wind up blaming your teachers for that, and I'd help you unlock it. But that's a whole different thing.
Oh, I would love that. But no, yeah, but again, that teachers
We
as well
teach
too.
math
That's
really badly in this country, period, but we teach it particularly badly for people who might have the capacity to understand it rather than memorizing it. Um,
I well, so my friend actually, so I had a hard time with gym and physical exercise for years because again, gym teachers weren't really the best. Uh, a lot of
I can only
background.
imagine what I mean. Like, I hate to play the stereotype game, but I can only imagine what they must be like in Montana.
Oh, I do remember a hiking trip where, and this was not the gym teacher, but this was a different teacher, and I was having a hard time, and she said, "Oh, let's play slave driver and slave. I'll be the slave driver, you be the slave. Let's go!" And I was like, "This is the most horrible thing I could possibly."
Let's play. I don't want to have a job tomorrow. If there's any justice in the world.
Good God, I know it was horrible. Even my friends were like, "Tess, are you okay?" So I hated hiking for a long time. But my friend
Yeah.
in college, she took winter courses in belly dancing. And she said, "Hey, Tess, do you want to take this with me?" And I did. And I finally found a physical activity that I loved, which was dancing. And I took martial arts classes because, I watched a lot of cartoons with martial arts. And I'm like, well, I want to learn about that. I watched Avatar Last Airbender, and I was
Right.
like, hey, I want to get into some Aikido. I want to get into some stuff here. But
I
my
want to
friend,
fly through the air.
yeah, why can't
Oh,
I do
wait, it
that?
doesn't work that way? Fuck.
Why can't that be my autistic superpower, is flying through the air? Come on.
I
But
watched Hero yesterday, and it's so stylistically wonderful, but I don't think that physics work that way.
darn it. But yeah, no, my friend got me into dancing in a physical activity in a fun and different way. So I
Right.
totally agree that math could have been a much better subject for me if it was taken into a different angle. So yeah. What were some of your other questions?
No, I had one more thing about the book, and then I was gonna transition to my traditional closing questions. And this is mostly a comment that is just you did something really, really, really well. That immediately made me think of my wife, and it's the page where you have the rabbits and bunnies leads to fairy tales, leads to literature, leads to soft fabrics, leads to the history of textiles, leads to watercolor art, leads to the creation of paint pigments. And my
Oh,
wife is an art teacher
yeah.
who knows everything about color and everything about art history. And like, this is definitely the way her brain has taken her to certain things is like, oh, I love that. You know, it starts with the really broad, you know, even when I showed her this, she's like, I do like bunnies.
That's fantastic.
But
Thank
like
you.
the creation of paint pigments immediately made me think of her. But then the web in general is like, yep, okay, totally get that. For that matter, everybody thinks I'm into politics, and it's not that I'm into politics, it's that I'm into figuring everything out. And like when the world stopped working the way I thought it was supposed to work, which, you know, was much longer ago than most people. Like I started paying attention to the world wasn't working the way that they were teaching me in school that it was supposed to work about the time that you were born. Um, so I've been having hyper fixations on things like government systems or what does this department do or what does that department do or what does this mean in the Constitution? How is a law written? You know, so everybody thinks I'm political when it's like I don't give a damn about the politics of it, except that like I do give a damn about the governing of it. And like when this person says they want to do that, I'm sitting there going, you understand that even if you let them do the thing they're saying they want to do, it would be bad.
Yeah, it's your webbing. It's the interest webbing. It bleeds out into other subjects that you got to
Right,
deep dive into. That's
right,
how my brain works with a lot of stuff too. How much mythology did I get into after watching Inuyasha and Avatar and Hellboy? Like, I don't know. I went to the
right.
library every day for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but
And honestly,
my phone.
I want to say it probably like where it really came out of is I discovered the Negro Leagues, so the baseball fixation,
Oh, I remember that.
and I discovered um like Kerouac and Salinger and Langston Hughes and enough people who had really dealt with adversity that it started really hitting on that level. And this was the era where like both the Republicans and the Democrats were talking about super predators. You know, Clinton did some great things, but he also signed the crime bill that like institutionalized racist punishments.
Oh God.
You know, because like an ounce of cocaine has a mandatory minimum of like a year, right?
Oh.
An ounce of crack, which by the way, an ounce of cocaine can be made used to make like 100 ounces of crack, but an ounce of crack was like 3 years mandatory minimum.
Oh
Rich white
man.
people use cocaine, poor black people use crack. And you
Well,
know
no, in
why poor
Montana we use meth. Okay,
well,
like
yeah.
you need.
Well,
Well,
my wife's from South Dakota. They're on it.
so I just want to get. I'm so sorry, my phone is dying. So
Oh,
if
okay. We're
I
gonna
gotta
get then
wrap
we'll go
this up.
straight to we'll go straight to the last question then.
Okay.
Well, no, the last two,
Okay.
because you've been at comics long enough that I need to ask you this one. In like the 5 years that I have been doing this podcast, I feel like my life has entered the twilight zone. I get to have conversations and experiences on like a weekly basis that if you told me that I was going to have them 10 years ago, I would have said, yeah, fuck you. You're out of your mind. I'm
Right.
I'm gonna text with who during the World Series.
Oh my God.
Um, but more and more I find that everybody in comics has these surreal experiences, these ways that their life has changed in just ways that their 10-year-old, 20-year-old self would just go, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I like to ask people to share one.
It was actually starting my own studio. Because as a kid, I thought, oh, I'm going to work for an animation studio. I'm going to work for a comic book studio. And I thought that having my own studio was sort of this very impossible thing. And now that I'm like, I have my own self publishing studio, little tiny me would be like, no. No, you don't.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
impossible. But I do. I've got my own mascot. I've got my own lines of work. I'm collaborating with other self-publishers. It's amazing. It's just been absolutely incredible. So that's the thing that's blown my mind.
No, I love it. I love it. And then this has been my favorite question to ask for forever. Tell me something you love, preferably a comic, but we don't have rules. Preferably
Oh my
storytelling, but we
God.
don't have rules. But something that
Okay.
you love that not enough people around you have experienced, and you need them to, so you have more people to talk about it with.
3. Bone by Jeff Smith. Not enough people have read Bone by Jeff Smith. Elf Quest by Wendy Panini. Panini? Elf Quest. Such a good comic book series. And then the Battle Angel Alita manga. Not enough people talk about the manga. It is so well done and so action oriented and so good with body horror. So those are the 3 comic books where I'm like, please, please read this. I want someone else to say stupid, stupid rat creatures. Please, I want this joke to continue.
My rat creature is downstairs. Otherwise, I'd pull him on screen. Oh.
Oh, you're a little rat creature. These ones are way bigger.
No, I have the I I have phony, smiley, and phone bone, and Bartleby, stuffed ones.
Yeah. Oh, Bartleby. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Oh,
no, actually, no. Do you know the Billy Ireland Museum, Cartoon
no,
Art
I do not know
Museum
the Billy
at
Ireland
Ohio
Museum.
State? Billy Ireland Cartoon Art Museum at Ohio State is the largest repository of original comic art, possibly in the world, definitely in the nation. Um, After he was on the show for the first time, Jeff and Caitlin McGurk, who is the curator of comics and cartoons at the Billy Ireland, took me on a personal backroom tour. So I got to look at original comic art through the ages that was picked out for me by Caitlin McGurk and Jeff Smith. Um,
God, that's so cool.
which is why you need to you need to apply to table at Cartoon Crossroads Columbus every year. Just do it every year. Get yourself a table, meet Jeff Smith. It's his con. He's always around.
Please email me the name of that con.
I
You
can
need
do
to
that.
email me
I
that
can do
con. You
that.
guys
We
need
should
to
just
email
stay
me
in
that
touch.
list of
We'll stay in
books.
touch.
Yes, let's do
I
that.
now go out there every year, which is why I'll say if you table or not, if you come out, I'll introduce you to Jeff Smith. Um,
Oh my God.
I mean,
So freaking
he's not
stellar.
quite at the point where I can call him one of my friends, but we're very friendly, and he
Yes.
recognizes me, and he's been on the show multiple times. I can be your Jeff Smith hookup, and I've met Wendy. I haven't had her on the show yet. I did trade contact information with her at C2E2 last year.
What an
I haven't read
icon.
enough ElfQuest. I need to read more, and I haven't read any Battle Angel Alita, though it is on my radar. Uh, so stick around for a minute, particularly because you're starting to
Actually, the
cut in and
action
out.
sequences are Chef's Kiss. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry. I
no,
better
that's
head
okay.
off for that. Thank you so
No,
very much
hold
for
on
having me
just a
on.
second. Let me take us out and then stick around with me for a minute or until you go out. For Tess Langston, this has been 22 Panels. We will see you after the next page.